Lunar Legacy, Book 5 from the core series. Written by N. Kennard, narrated by N. Kennard. This is the 5th book in the core series. If you haven't already, listen to Books 1, Book 2, Book 3, and Book 4 audiobook. All 4 books are available on the Story Depths YouTube channel. Audiobook partner, Story Depths, available only on YouTube. All rights reserved. The characters and events portrayed in this book are fictitious. Any similarity to real persons, living or dead, is coincidental and not intended by the author. No part of this book may be reproduced or stored in a retrieval system or transmitted in any form or by any means, electronic, mechanical, photocopying, recording, or otherwise, without express written permission of the author. Prologue Stellar, the core book 4. The team led by Alexander Hawke embarks on a daring mission to solve the world's energy crisis. Having returned from their expedition to the Earth's core, they unveil their discovery of a mineral with unprecedented energy generation capabilities. However, their revelation is met with skepticism and conspiracy as powerful groups seek to discredit their findings. Hawke and his team face new challenges as they seek to harness the power of cosmic particles to revolutionize energy generation. As they work to unveil their discoveries to the world, they encounter opposition from powerful groups who seek to undermine their efforts. A conspiracy emerges, casting doubt on the viability of their findings and placing Hawke and his team in jeopardy. Undeterred, they press forward, rallying support from unexpected allies and pushing the boundaries of science and exploration. Along the way, they unlock new mysteries of the universe. As they embark on a perilous journey towards the moon, they confront unknown dangers and unforeseen challenges, testing the limits of their courage and determination. But with each obstacle they overcome, they draw closer to realizing their vision of a world powered by sustainable energy and guided by the principles of innovation and discovery. Book 4 delves deeper into the complexities of science, exploration, and human ambition, weaving a captivating narrative filled with adventure, intrigue, and the boundless possibilities of scientific exploration. It captures the spirit of discovery and the resilience of the human spirit as Hawke and his team chart a course towards a brighter future for humanity. Chapter 1. Series of Chances. As Hawke had left for the secret island, Sean retired to a secluded house, trying to keep hidden from the ever-inquisitive Wolverman's sharp eyes. The house, far out in the countryside, offered a temporary sanctuary where Sean could coordinate their next moves without fear of surveillance. But even in his secluded hideaway, Sean was not beyond the watchful eye of the world government. They had been keeping a constant watch on his every move. They knew his every movement and were tapping into his communications. No matter how hard Sean tried, he was living on borrowed time, surviving from one day to the next. Each day brought more anxiety as Sean walked the fine line between secrecy and action. He worked diligently to obtain information and mobilize support for their cause, all while being aware that he was under continual monitoring. However, he refused to back down. Sean's unwavering perseverance and resilience kept driving him ahead, fueling his determination to complete the objective. He had no idea that his next meeting would permanently alter the path of their voyage. A ray of hope appeared in the serene stillness of Sean's hidden retreat, in the form of a message from a group of miners. They contacted Sean, expressing their readiness to contribute to the cause. Sean, eager to gain supporters in their goal to mining planadium from the moon, saw this as a potential opportunity to add to their ranks. However, not known to Sean, these miners were not the allies they seemed. They had been put as spies in Sean's group to gather information about Hawke's objective, as part of a diabolical plot planned by the world government. Sean, blinded by optimism and a desire for help, welcomed the miners with open arms, oblivious of the danger hiding beneath their cheerful exterior. As they discussed plans and methods, he had no idea he was unintentionally slipping into a trap created by his opponents. The web of lies grew around Sean with each passing instant, pulling him closer to the jaws of betrayal. As the miners participated in the government's ruse, Sean remained unaware of the dangers that awaited him, his faith in their newfound pals proving to be his biggest weakness. Sean was uneasy as he continued to cooperate with the miners, unsure of their genuine objectives. Something felt wrong, a nagging sense he couldn't shake. Despite his instincts to be cautious, Sean pushed forward, determined to acquire the support they needed for their task. But just as he was ready to make a critical call to Hawk, a stunning realization hit him like a bolt of lightning. The air seemed to crackle with tension as Sean looked out the window, sensing a presence in the shadows. Sean felt a sinking in his chest as he realized time was running out. The walls were closing in on him, and he found himself caught in a deadly game of cat and mouse with forces beyond his control. With every instinct screaming at him to leave, Sean knew he was on the verge of tragedy. With the global government's covert operatives closing in, he only had one chance to warn Hawk and the team before it was too late. But time was running out, and the stakes had never been higher. With the world government's covert spies closing in on him, he realized his time was running out. He frantically groped for his phone, typing a message to Hawk with shaky fingers. "Run and save your research," the words screamed over the phone's screen, a desperate cry formed of fear and despair. Sean knew he was putting everything at danger with each keystroke, but he had no other option. Their goal, their lives, were on the line, and he refused to give up without a fight. Outside his door, the sound of footsteps became louder, and the air was thick with suspense. Sean's heart hammered in his chest as he braced for the impending encounter. However, even as the agents closed in, Sean refused to give up hope. His letter to Hawk was a beacon of resistance, a rallying cry against insurmountable odds. With his last ounce of strength, he prayed that his warning would reach Hawk in time, and that they would be able to escape their attackers' hands. Sean braced himself for what lied ahead as the door swung open and the agents rushed inside. Though his fate remained unknown, he was confident that he had done everything in his ability to preserve their goal. It was now up to Hawk and the team to continue the fight in his absence. With a loud bang, the door to Sean's hidden retreat flew open, revealing a team of operatives dressed in menacing black garb. Their faces disguised by stern expressions, they moved into the room with deliberate efficiency, their presence an alarming sign of Sean's approaching capture. Sean remained frozen in place, his heart pounding in his chest as the agents closed in on him. There was nowhere to flee or hide. He was entirely at their mercy, a helpless pawn in their lethal game of cat and mouse. As they gripped him roughly, Sean felt the cold bite of metal handcuffs wrapping his wrists, trapping him in a vice-like hold. His protests were unheard as the agents took him from the protection of his shelter, their hold firm as they marched him to an uncertain doom. Sean's mind raced with questions as he battled the veil of fear and doubt. What would happen now that he was in the hands of his abductors? Will he ever see his companions again, or is his warning too late to save them from a similar fate? As he was carried out of the room, Sean took one last look back at the sanctuary he had called home, his heart heavy with the weight of everything he had lost. Despite the odds, he refused to give up hope. Though his trip had taken an unexpected turn, he swore to never give up hope, for as long as he breathed, the fight would go on. Sean was apprehended by MEA, and as the doors to the MEA facility closed behind him, Sean was forced into a world of uncertainty and anxiety. The once prestigious organization, now in the hands of the world government, loomed ominously before him, its hallways resonating with murmurs of conspiracy and deception. Sean, captured and imprisoned within the facility, was powerless to stop the world from being flooded with deception and misinformation. With each passing day, the truth about Planadium became twisted beyond recognition, transformed into a weapon used by those in authority to maintain their control on society. As the false narrative spread like wildfire, the world turned against Hawk and his team, treating them as pariahs and traitors. They were chased by authorities and opponents at every turn, forcing them to flee into the shadows of the secret island. Hawk and his team were uneasy as the sun fell below the horizon, throwing the secret island in shadow. Unknown to them, their refuge had been breached, and their every action was being observed by the world government. A silent army of agents landed on the island, their presence hidden by the cover of night. Armed with orders to capture Hawk and his squad at any cost, they proceeded with deadly precision, their footsteps masked by the gentle whisper of the ocean breeze. Meanwhile, high above in the dark night sky, satellites loomed ominously, their all-seeing gaze fixed on the island below. They provided live feeds of the developing events to the waiting MEA operators, giving them a real-time view into the core of the undercover operation. As Hawk and his team escaped the secret island, the air was thick with urgency. Their covert research had attracted some unwanted attention, and now they found themselves being pursued by a group of relentless agents sent by the world government. Meanwhile, back at the world government headquarters, a group of officials gathered around a monitor, each one's face aglow with the screen. There were Agent Reynolds, a seasoned operative with a steel in his eye, and Dr. Patel, a brilliant scientist whose mind was as sharp as her wit. Agent Reynolds: "Sir, we've got a situation. Our satellites have picked up an unidentified spacecraft, leaving the coordinates of the secret island. It's traveling at an alarming speed of 1.3 kilometers per second." Dr. Patel: "That's impossible. Nothing on Earth moves at that velocity. We must be dealing with advanced technology here." Dr. Patel: "This Quorum ship has got us all scratching our heads. According to our reports, it was never designed for flight. Its primary function was hovering and drilling, nothing more." Dr. Patel: "Indeed, Agent Reynolds. The Quorum ship was a marvel of engineering, but its capabilities were limited to Earth's surface. To see it defying gravity and taking flight is beyond anything we could have imagined." Could it be possible that Hawk and his team have made modifications to the ship? Enhanced its propulsion systems, perhaps? It's a possibility, but highly unlikely. The Quorum ship was built using conventional technology. There's no way it could achieve the speeds we're seeing now without some form of advanced propulsion. Okay, so what do we have here? Alien stuff, maybe? Or maybe Hawk and his team just found something beyond our understanding. Dr. Patel, if we set aside the fact that it's almost impossible that Hawk and his team managed to modify the Quorum ship, then we must face another question, even more puzzling. How are they propelling it? The world is already facing an energy crisis, and there is simply no available resource that could power a ship of that size and weight. You make a very good point, Agent Reynolds. The Quorum ship is the size of a commercial plane, if not bigger. The energy to propel it through the skies is astronomical, to say the least. Exactly. And with our available resources right now, it's inconceivable that Hawk and his team could have access to that fuel or power source. Which begs another question. Where do they get their energy from? Did they perhaps find some unknown source of power as they journeyed to the Earth's core? Well, it's not totally ruled out. We know they have been researching secretly, and their breakthroughs have been nothing short of amazing. But to squeeze enough energy to power a ship of that magnitude, that's improbable, if not impossible. Agent Reynolds, I've done some more research on it. I've come to a few interesting findings about the Quorum ship. Go on, Dr. Patel. What have you found? Well, first and foremost, the ship is able to maneuver with an agility that goes against conventional understanding. It's not moving like a traditional space shuttle or aircraft. The movements are fluid, almost, organic. Organic? That's impossible. Are you suggesting that the ship is being controlled by some sort of sentient entity? I can't say for certain, but it's a possibility we can't ignore. Whatever is piloting that ship seems to have an intuitive understanding of its capabilities. And what about heat signatures? Any signs of propulsion systems or engines? That's the other perplexing part. There are no heat signatures coming from the Quorum ship, no signs of traditional propulsion technology whatsoever. It's as if the ship is operating on a completely different level of physics. Agent Reynolds, but that's impossible. There's nothing in our current understanding of science that could explain it. Exactly, and therein lies the mystery. Whatever Hawk and his team have discovered, it's beyond anything we've encountered before. There's no technology on Earth that works on that scale. Agent Reynolds, we have to let our boss know about the abilities of the Quorum ship and its unknown power. This is a discovery of unprecedented magnitude, and withholding this information could have dire consequences. Agent Reynolds: I agree, Dr. Patel. We can't keep this a secret any longer. We need to report our findings to the higher authorities of the world government and seek guidance on how to proceed. But what if they decide to take action against the Quorum ship? What if they see it as a threat and move to attack it? That's a risk we'll have to take. We can't allow personal agendas to interfere with the greater good. We must do what's right, regardless of the consequences. Boss, you won't be doing anything of the sort. Dr. Patel and Agent Reynolds turned to see their boss standing in the doorway, his expression grave. I've been monitoring your conversation, and I'm afraid I can't allow you to report this to anyone. But sir, this is a matter of global importance. We can't keep it hidden. Listen to me, both of you. If we were to share this information with the higher authorities of the world government, they would see the Quorum ship as a threat, and they would stop at nothing to destroy it. So what do you suggest we do? We keep this information to ourselves. We monitor the situation closely, but we don't make any moves until we have a better understanding of what's at stake. Understood? Dr. Patel and Agent Reynolds exchange uneasy glances but finally nod. Agent Reynolds: Understood, sir. Yes, sir. Boss, good. Now get back to work. We have a lot to do if we're going to keep this secret from getting out. As Dr. Patel, Agent Reynolds, and their boss made the difficult decision to keep the escape of the Quorum ship a secret, a tense atmosphere settled over the world government headquarters. While they debated the moral ramifications of their decision, their actions unintentionally played an important role in guaranteeing the Quorum ship's safety. With no knowledge of the Quorum ship's true capabilities, the world government remained unaware of the potential capabilities. As the Quorum ship prepared to leave Earth's atmosphere, its departure went unnoticed because of Dr. Patel's boss. Without the interference of hostile forces, it soared into the vast expanse of space, carrying Hawk and his team towards their next destination. For Dr. Patel, Agent Reynolds, and their boss, it was a leap of faith, one that carried immense risks and uncertainties. However, they believed it was a vital sacrifice to secure humanity's future and ensure that the Quorum ship's mission could continue uninterrupted. As the Quorum ship disappeared from view, drifting further and further away from Earth, the trio could only hope that their decision would prove to be the right one. And as they returned to their duties, they knew that the fate of Hawk and his team, and perhaps the fate of the world itself, rested in their hands. The Quorum ship soared beyond the boundaries of Earth's atmosphere. A sense of awe and wonder filled the hearts of those on board. Despite the uncertainties and challenges they faced, the ship continued on its trajectory with unwavering determination. Inside the Quorum ship's control room, Edward, Emily, and Hawk stood in silent amazement as they watched the Earth grow smaller and smaller in the distance. The ship's gravitational control systems, powered by brumium, ensured that the gravity within remained constant, providing a sense of stability amidst the vastness of space. Edward: I can't believe it. We've actually done it. The Quorum ship has breached the Kármán line. It's incredible, isn't it? The efficiency and precision with which the ship operated, it's beyond anything we could have imagined. Indeed, and to think we owe it all to the power of brumium. Without its capabilities, this journey would have been impossible. Agreed. Brumium's gravitational properties have proven to be invaluable. It's like having our own personal force field protecting us. And not just protecting us, but propelling us forward. The Quorum ship's power remains at full capacity, even as we leave Earth's atmosphere behind. Edward, based on our current speed of 1.3 kilometers per second, it looks like we'll reach the moon in approximately 83 hours. That's correct, Hawk. But if we utilize brumium's capabilities, we can significantly reduce that time. I recall you mentioning that we could reach the moon in just 2 hours and 30 minutes with brumium's help. How is that possible? Leaving Earth's atmosphere is the biggest challenge for any spacecraft. Traditional propulsion systems struggle to overcome the gravitational pull of the planet. But with brumium's capabilities, the Quorum ship maneuvered easily through that obstacle. So, now that we're in space, what's our next move? Now that we're beyond Earth's atmosphere, we can gradually increase our speed. With Brumium's assistance, we can safely reach speeds of up to 50 kilometers per second. And at that speed, how long will it take us to reach the moon? At 50 kilometers per second, we could reach the moon in just 2 hours. It's an astonishing feat, made possible by Brumium's unique properties. Edward, I can't help but wonder about the braking capabilities of the Quorum ship. If we're traveling at such high speeds, will we be able to control the ship at will? It's a valid concern, Hawk. Traditional spacecraft rely on gravity assists to speed up and reverse boosters to slow down. But the Quorum ship operates on a whole different level, thanks to Brumium's capabilities. But how do we ensure that we can slow down or stop when we need to? What if something goes wrong? Edward, that's where Brumium comes in. Its gravitational properties allow us to manipulate the ship's speed and direction instantaneously. Let me try something. Edward approaches the control panel and inputs a series of commands, causing the Quorum ship to decelerate rapidly. What are you doing, Edward? I'm testing the braking capabilities of the Quorum ship. With Brumium's help, we should be able to decrease our speed instantly. As the ship slows down, Hawkeye watches in amazement as the stars outside the window come to a gradual stop. That's incredible, Edward. I had no idea we could control the ship with such precision. It's all thanks to Brumium. Its gravitational ability gives us unparalleled maneuverability in space. With its help, we can navigate the cosmos with ease. Edward, Hawk, I have a question. On Earth, Brumium was levitating at a locked distance and wouldn't breach that distance by falling down on the surface. But if that's the same case for the moon, how will we land the Quorum ship? What if, due to this unknown gravitational force between the moon and the Quorum ship, we end up crashing? That's a valid concern, Chad. The gravitational dynamics of the moon are different from those of Earth, and we can't rely solely on our Earth-based observations. So how do we ensure a safe landing on the moon? We can't rely on data simulations for this. We'll need to test it by traditional methods. We'll have to slowly drive the Quorum ship on the surface of the moon and observe its behavior firsthand. Agreed. We'll need to gather as much data as possible to understand how Brumium interacts with the moon's gravitational field. Only then can we ensure a safe landing for the Quorum ship in case of multiple journeys. It's a risk, but it's one we'll have to take. We can't afford any mistakes, especially not when we're so close to finding planetarium. Chad, I'll start preparing the Quorum ship for landing simulations. We'll take it slow and steady, ensuring that we have all the necessary precautions in place. Good. Let's not leave anything to chance. The success of our mission depends on it. As the Quorum ship hurtled through space at an amazing 50 kilometers per speed, the sense of expectation on board reached peak levels. Hawk, Edward, and the rest of the squad waited with bated breath as the moon rose larger in the distance, a beacon of hope against the backdrop of stars. This expedition was a watershed moment for humanity, a previously unattainable goal. To reach the moon in just 2 hours broke all prior records, demonstrating the power of invention, hope, and human determination. Inside the Quorum ship's control room, Edward entered the landing simulations with experienced precision. With each order, he fine-tuned the ship's course, ensuring that it would progressively slow as it reached the lunar surface. The team watched the simulations unfold before them, the Quorum ship navigating with grace and agility. As the ship approached the moon, its speed gradually reduced, and its descent was controlled and accurate. The Quorum ship had just landed inside the Tycho crater, a vast expanse stretching out before them with a depth of 4.7 kilometers and a diameter of 85 kilometers, signaling an important moment in human history. Cheers broke out among the squad as they grasped the importance of their accomplishment. Hawk, Emily, and Chad gathered around the holographic display in the control room of the Quorum ship. The suspense was obvious. Hawk, this is it, the Tycho crater. Our landing couldn't have been more perfect. Indeed, Hawk. And based on the impact of the crater, there's a high probability of finding planetarium in the form of debris created by the impact. That's fascinating. So we won't need to resort to drilling operations? Exactly, Chad. With the Quorum ship's advanced scanning capabilities, we can survey the entire crater area and pinpoint any concentrations of planadium. And considering the size of the Tycho crater, there's bound to be a significant amount of debris scattered throughout. Chad, this is a game changer. We can collect samples without the need for extensive drilling operations, saving us time and resources. Agreed. Let's get started on the scans right away. The sooner we locate the planadium, the sooner we can begin harvesting it for energy production. A great sensation of astonishment filled Hawk as he stood at the viewport of the Quorum ship, staring out over the wide expanse of the moon. Humanity had been dreaming about visiting the moon again for ages, traveling its surface and delving into its secrets. But in a world engulfed in instability and conflict, these aspirations had become impossible due to the continuous energy crisis. And yet, here they were. A significant milestone for humanity was reached when the Quorum ship touched down on the moon. It was a stunning and unsettling sight to see Earth enshrouded in clouds and hovering in the blackness of space. It acted as a sobering reminder of how vulnerable their home planet is and how urgently sustainable solutions to the global energy issue must be found. The view of Earth from the moon was just beautiful. Suspended in the immense vacuum of space, the planet hung like a gem against the velvet background of the universe. Earth, shrouded in a veil of clouds, appeared both delicate and resilient, bearing the weight of its innumerable inhabitants and the tapestry of life that covered its surface. Hawk couldn't help but feel wonder as he peered out the viewport of the Quorum ship. On the moon's surface, he witnessed a sight that had escaped civilization for centuries. From humble beginnings as primitive hunter-gatherers to the peak of scientific achievement represented by their journey to the moon, humanity had gone a long way. But as he gazed upon the beauty of Earth from afar, Hawk recognized that their adventure was far from over. Indeed, that was only the beginning. Humanity was on the verge of a new era, one of unparalleled discovery and exploration. As he pondered on their journey to this point, Hawk realized they were part of something bigger than themselves. They were pioneers, explorers, and visionaries who forged a path for humanity's destiny amid the stars. As he returned his eyes to Earth, its swirling clouds creating a captivating ballet of light and shadow, Hawk felt a surge of determination rush through his veins. They had come this far, and they planned to go far further. For the benefit of all humanity, they would continue to push the limits of what was possible, rising ever higher and farther in search of a better tomorrow. As the team prepared to scan the Tycho crater for traces of planadium, Edward and Chad worked tirelessly to ensure that the scanners were ready for deployment. Inside the Quorum ship's control room, they meticulously checked and rechecked the equipment, making sure that everything was in perfect working order. The scanners are all set, Chad. We're ready to begin the survey. Great job, Edward. Now let's get those drones prepped and ready to go. If we find any signs of planadium, we'll need to collect samples right away. Agreed. I'll start prepping the drones while you finish up the final checks on the scanners. As Chad double-checked the scanners, Edward began programming the drones for deployment. These unmanned aerial vehicles would be their eyes and ears on the moon's surface, capable of collecting samples and relaying data back to the Quorum ship in real time. Drones are ready to go, Edward. We're all set for deployment. Excellent. Let's get them out there and start scanning the crater. With a flick of a switch, the drones were released from their docking stations and soared out into the lunar landscape. As they flew over the Tycho crater, their sensors began to pick up faint traces of planadium, sending a ripple of excitement through the control room. Chad's eyes widened in astonishment as he relayed the news to Edward. Chad, we've got a hit, Edward. The scanners are indicating planadium's availability in all areas of the Tycho crater. Edward's brows furrowed in disbelief, his mind struggling to process the magnitude of their discovery. Edward, that's incredible. I never expected the entire crater to be rich in planadium. This goes against everything we thought we knew about the moon's composition. Hawk, who had been observing the exchange from across the control room, stepped forward with a mixture of excitement and curiosity. Are you sure, Chad? This changes everything. The earlier moon missions were limited to collecting selective moon rocks and searching for water. The idea of planadium being so abundant here, it's unprecedented. Chad nodded, his expression still one of amazement. Chad, I've triple-checked the data, Hawk. The scanners don't lie. It seems the Tycho crater holds more secrets than we ever imagined. The group fell into a thoughtful stillness, their minds churning with options. With planadium abundantly available throughout the crater, their mission took on new importance as they questioned the outcomes. Emily turned to Chad with a determined expression, her mind already racing with possibilities. Emily, Chad, is it possible for us to scan the other crater areas as well to see planadium's availability? I have a theory that I'd like to reveal after we have the scanning results from the other craters. Chad nodded in agreement, recognizing the importance of Emily's idea. Absolutely, Emily. It's a smart move. We shouldn't limit ourselves to just one crater, especially now that we know planadium is more abundant than we initially thought. I'll get the rovers prepped and ready to go. We'll cover as much ground as possible. As Chad set to work on deploying the rovers, Emily couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. Her theory was based on the idea that planadium may not be exclusive to the Tycho crater, and if her suspicions were correct, their mission could take on an even greater significance. Emily's excitement heightened when a new group of drones set out to examine the moon's other neighboring craters. She was thrilled with anticipation, her intuition telling her that the other craters will also contain planadium. As the hours passed, the team waited impatiently for the results to arrive. Emily's optimism and belief in her theory were unwavering. The results eventually come. The scanners detected planadium everywhere they looked, confirming Emily's suspicions beyond a reasonable doubt. The team assembled in the Quorum ship's control room, filled with anticipation. Emily stood in the center, her eyes full of excitement as she prepared to present her theory to her colleagues. Emily responds, I have something I'd like to discuss, a theory that I've been working on regarding the moon's composition. Go ahead, Emily. We are all ears. Based on our recent discoveries and the amount of planadium found throughout the moon's cratered surface, I've concluded that the moon is more than just a barren satellite. In fact, I believe it could represent the dormant core of a once fully operating celestial body, similar to Earth's core. That is quite a theory, Emily, but what proof do we have to back that up? Emily, consider this. The moon's composition is strikingly similar to that of the Earth's core, with traces of iron, nickel, and other heavy metals. And now, with the discovery of planadium spread across the lunar landscape, it's possible that the moon was once a vibrant energy production hub, similar to Earth. How could the moon's core have gone dormant, and why haven't we seen any proof of this before? Perhaps it has been dormant for millions of years, buried beneath the moon's surface until now. And as to why we haven't found evidence of this before, it's possible that past missions were simply focused on other goals, such as gathering moon rocks and looking for water. It's definitely a fascinating theory, Emily. However, further research will be required to substantiate this claim. Let us continue our research of the moon's surface and see what else we can find. Emily nodded, her thoughts already racing with ideas. This was only the beginning of their voyage, and she knew there was a lot more to learn. As the team looked more into Emily's notion, the discourse became more speculative, with each member contributing their own insights and perspectives. Jillian, it's exciting to consider that the moon could be the remains of a once active core, but wouldn't such a core have left more obvious traces of its activity? That is a reasonable issue, Jillian, but we must examine the effects of erosion and other geological processes spanning millions of years. It's likely that any surface evidence of the moon's previous activity has been lost or destroyed by time. Chad, how about the lack of seismic activity on the moon? If it was a fully active core, wouldn't we expect to observe more tectonic movement? Andrew, not necessarily, Chad. Remember, the moon is far smaller than Earth, thus it would have cooled much faster. This could have resulted in a quicker cessation of all geological action, leaving a dormant core. So, if Emily's theory is right, how does it affect our mission? Are we just here to confirm the presence of planadium, or do we have a bigger role to play in discovering the moon's secrets? I think we have a far bigger role to play, Hawk. If the moon is the dormant core of a once active celestial body, it holds the key to releasing untapped energy potential. Our aim is not just to harvest planadium, but also to discover the truth about our place in the universe. As Emily prepared to disclose the next component of her theory, the crew became silent in expectation. They leaned in closer, curious what she had to say. Emily took a deep breath, her eyes light up with enthusiasm as she said, "Emily, when I say core, I mean that we are currently looking at the core itself. Our Quorum ship has landed on what was once the heart of a fully working celestial body, a core that has since solidified owing to cold and inactivity." The team exchanged astonished expressions as Emily's announcement sank in. "Hawk, you mean to say we're standing on the actual core of the moon?" Emily says, "Exactly, Hawk. And if my idea is correct, this core has the key to unleashing the moon's full potential. It's not only a dormant relic of a bygone period, it's a pool of untapped energy waiting to be utilized for the sake of civilization." "Chad, but how can we know for sure? Is there a method to confirm your theory?" "We'll need to run more tests and analysis, of course, but based on the information we've acquired thus far, I'm more certain than ever that we're on to something huge. Gillian, so what's our next move?" As Hawk nodded in agreement with Gillian's question, he turned to Emily, curiosity evident in his expression. "What will be our next move, Emily?" Emily paused for a moment, considering her response carefully before speaking. "Emily, our next step is to calculate how much planadium the moon consists of. Not only will this help us assess the potential energy reserves, but it will also provide valuable insights into how the cores of celestial bodies operate." Hawk's eyes lit up with understanding as he grasped the significance of Emily's suggestion. "That's a brilliant idea, Emily. By understanding the composition and distribution of planadium on the moon, we can gain a deeper understanding of its core structure and composition. It's a crucial piece of the puzzle." Emily smiled, gratified by Hawk's approval. Chapter 2. The Moon. In the control room of the Quorum ship, Emily, Chad, and Edward came together around a holographic display to proceed with the plan for calculating the percentage of planadium available on the surface of the moon. "Emily, now let's try computing the percentage of planadium that is available on the moon. We can only do that using simulations, because we can't directly measure the composition of the inner core." Chad nodded in agreement. His fingers moved at record speed through the holographic interface as he inputted the necessary information. "I can do the simulation based on the data we've gathered so far. We will take surface composition, crater density, and geological formations into consideration. Emily, and include possible variations in the concentration of planadium based on depth. We need it as close to reality as possible." Edward joined, his eyes trained on the display as he scrolled over the parameters that the simulations would run on. "Edward, I can run the algorithms to refine the process to make sure that we're accounting for all the variables. If all goes well, we should be able to have a fairly accurate estimate of the percentage of planadium present on the moon." With the plan ready, the team worked in their minds, knowing that calculating the percentage of planadium would not be a walk in the park. But they also never give up, for the possibility of discovery, for the possibility of unlocking the planadium's true potential. When the team finalized their plan to compute the percentage of planadium on the moon's surface, Edward set to work deploying the Quorum ship's drones for scanning. "Edward, we have 12 drones on board, each of which I can set to cover a certain area of the moon's surface and set to scan simultaneously." With practiced efficiency, Edward turned the drones on and navigated them out of the docking bay of the Quorum ship. As they soared gracefully into the lunar sky, sensors humming in activity, the team watched with anticipation from the control room. "Chad, drones 1 through 6 are scanning the northern hemisphere, while drones 7 through 12 are covering the southern hemisphere." "Good work, Edward. Now, let's monitor their progress closely and make any necessary adjustments as they scan." Having sent the drones out and having started the scanning operations, the team settled in for a long wait. They knew that getting accurate data took time, but they were determined to see their mission through to the end. And as they watched the drones dart across the lunar landscape, they couldn't help but feel excitement build inside them. They were on the brink of a major breakthrough, and they were ready to seize that opportunity with both hands. As the team reviewed the results of the scans from the drones, they were surprised to find out that it would take 20 days to scan the whole surface of the moon. Emily, 20 days? That's longer than we expected. Indeed, it seems that the moon's vastness is something big to get around for our scanning operations. But we can't rush this process. We need to make sure we get accurate data from every corner of the surface of the moon. Agreed. We have come this far, and we can't afford to start cutting corners. We will need to adjust our plans accordingly and prepare for the long haul. The team grappled with the daunting task of scanning the surface of the moon. They knew they needed a new approach to speed up the process. After brainstorming several ideas, they came up with a highly innovative scanning technique that would revolutionize their efforts. Emily, what if we have a system of connected drones working together in harmony to effectively scan the surface of the moon? That is a great idea, Emily. Working cooperatively, the drones can cover bigger areas in less time. We'll need to ensure that the drones maintain constant communication with each other so as not to overlook or re-examine the same areas. With the plan ready, the team began to work on the new scanning technique by rearranging the drones. Each drone was installed with advanced communication systems that would coordinate seamless integration with its fellow drones. As the drones took to the skies of the moon once more, the team watched with bated breath, hopeful that their new approach would yield faster and more accurate results. Days passed, and the drones worked hard, crisscrossing the surface of the moon in an organized dance of exploration. With every passing hour, the team's optimism grew, buoyed by the progress they were making. Finally, after weeks of scanning, the moment of truth arrived. The team crowded around the control room display, eagerly awaiting the final results. Emily, it's done. The scanning is complete. And the results? Incredible. With our new technique of scanning, we managed to cover the whole surface of the moon in just 10 days, half of what our initial estimation was. Incredible. This is a testament to the ingenuity and perseverance of our team. As the team analyzed the scanning results, they met a revelation. The surface of the moon contained 23% planadium, a significant discovery that might have profound implications for their mission. Emily, 23% planadium. That's higher than we anticipated. It's remarkable. The surface of the moon must have been bombarded by countless asteroid impacts over billions of years, resulting in the accumulation of planadium. And if the surface contains this much planadium, imagine what we might find when we explore the moon's inner core. The percentage could be far greater. Agreed. This raises even more questions about the moon's composition and its potential as an energy resource. As the team pondered the implications of their discovery, another question arose. Could the presence of planadium be linked to the toxicity and sharpness of the moon's dust? It's possible. Planadium is known to interact with other elements in unexpected ways. It's worth investigating further. Chad, and if the moon's dust is indeed toxic and sharp due to the presence of planadium, it could pose a significant challenge for future lunar exploration missions. The team gathered around the central console, where the latest data from the drones was displayed. The revelation of the moon's high planadium content sparked a flurry of theories and discussions. Emily, based on the data, it seems that the planadium on the moon's surface is likely the result of countless asteroid impacts over billions of years. These impacts would have scratched off planadium from the moon's mantle and mixed it with the lunar dust. Chad, that makes sense. The constant bombardment would have gradually brought planadium to the surface. It's been a slow, ongoing process, creating the high concentration we're seeing now. And this also explains the reflectivity of the moon. Planadium has highly reflective properties, which contribute to the moon's brightness. It's not just about the sun's light. The planadium itself plays a significant role. So the planadium not only holds the potential to solve our energy crisis, but also explains some of the moon's unique characteristics. Emily nodded, excitement evident in her eyes. Yes, and understanding this process could give us deeper insights into the geological history of the moon and other celestial bodies. It's like reading a history book written in cosmic collisions and chemical reactions. Chad, and if we can map out where these planadium-rich areas are, we can focus our efforts on mining the most concentrated deposits. It could save us a lot of time and resources. Agreed, but we also need to be cautious. The high reflectivity and potential toxicity of the dust mean that any mining operations will need to be carefully planned to avoid health risks. Right, we'll need to develop specialized equipment and protocols for handling and processing planadium. But first, let's complete our scans and simulations. We need a comprehensive understanding before we take the next step. The team continued to discuss their discoveries and strategies, with each member giving their skills to help solve the riddle. They were aware that their mission on the moon was only beginning, and that the discoveries they were discovering had the potential to alter the direction of human history. As the drones went along with their painstaking scanning of the moon's surface, incoming data revealed even more fascinating details. Excitement grew over the high concentration of planadium, soon to be followed by the discovery of new materials that added depth to their understanding of the lunar terrain. The first of the additional minerals detected were helium-3, a rare isotope long hypothesized to exist on the moon. Its existence in massive quantities was a reassuring find, as helium-3 could prove to be fuel for future fusion reactors, giving another avenue for sustainable energy. Next, the drones detected massive deposits of titanium. This strong, lightweight metal is essential for aerospace engineering and would revolutionize the building of spacecraft and habitats on the moon and beyond. The team made a note of the implications for their mission, thinking that maybe they had the ability to use the resources of the moon to construct and repair equipment without relying on Earth-based supplies. They also detected magnesium and silicon in large amounts. Magnesium is necessary to create strong alloys, while silicon is a basic component of electronics and solar panels. These minerals could serve not just for the establishment of a sustainable lunar base, but also for the development of advanced technologies for use back on Earth. Deposits of aluminum were also detected, which would be of use for a variety of construction purposes. Its presence further supported the feasibility of habitation and long-term industrial activity on the moon. One of the most unexpected finds was traces of rare earth elements. These elements are vital for the production of high-tech devices like smartphones, electric vehicles, and sophisticated military equipment. The scarcity of rare earth elements on Earth has been one of the big challenges, and finding them on the moon could help alleviate some of the geopolitical tensions surrounding their supply. The team analyzed the data and started to realize the full extent of the resource wealth on the moon. Based on the facts presented by the existence of all these various minerals, the lunar environment looked very promising for sustaining human activity and technological advancements. Hawk called a meeting to discuss the implications of these discoveries. Hawk, we've struck gold here, metaphorically speaking. The variety and quantity of these minerals are beyond anything we could have hoped for. Emily, the presence of helium-3 alone could revolutionize our approach to energy production, and with titanium and aluminum, we could significantly reduce our dependency on Earth for construction materials. Edward, not to mention the rare Earth elements, this could be a game changer for our technology sectors. The geopolitical implications are huge. Chad, but we need to be cautious. Mining these minerals will require new techniques and careful planning. The moon's environment is harsh, and we have to ensure the safety of any operations we undertake. Agreed. We also need to consider the environmental impact. We can't afford to repeat the mistakes we've made on Earth. As the team gathered to discuss the next steps in their mission, the excitement was palpable, but so were the challenges ahead. Mining planadium, a resource that could revolutionize energy production on Earth, was now a tangible possibility. However, the Quorum ship was not equipped for extensive mining operations, and this posed a significant hurdle. Hawk began the meeting, outlining the key points they needed to address. Hawk, we've identified significant planadium deposits on the moon's surface, but as we all know, the Quorum ship is designed for drilling and navigation, not mining. We need to figure out how to begin extraction with the resources we have. Emily nodded, bringing up a crucial point. Emily, the Quorum ship's capabilities are impressive, but without mining equipment, we're limited in what we can achieve. We need to consider how we can retrofit or repurpose some of our current technology to start the extraction process. Edward, always the engineer, started brainstorming. Edward leaned forward, his eyes shining with the thrill of a new challenge. He turned on a holographic display that projected a detailed 3D model of the Quorum ship's drilling system. The team gathered around, eager to hear his plan. All right, everyone, here's what I'm thinking. Our ship's drilling system is designed to dig deep into the Earth's crust and handle extreme conditions. It was never meant for mining per se, but we can modify it. The key lies in the versatility of the brumium-powered drill. He zoomed in on the drill bit, pointing to various components. Edward, the drill bit uses high-frequency oscillators that can shatter through the toughest rock. If we tune the oscillation frequency and amplitude just right, we can calibrate it to break apart the planadium deposits without turning them to dust. Then we get bigger chunks that are easier to collect. But how do we collect these fragments? We don't have any scoops or bins for mining on board. Good question. The vacuum system for the ship, originally meant to clear debris from the drill site, can be repurposed. We'll extend the hoses of the vacuum system and attach a filter system that will sift out the planadium from the lunar dust. The filtered planadium will be stored in the ship's cargo hold. What about power consumption? Both the drilling and vacuum systems are power-intensive. Will the brumium's capabilities suffice? That's the beauty of brumium. Its energy output is vastly superior to conventional systems. We've barely tapped into its full potential. I'll reroute additional power to the drilling and vacuum systems during mining operations. The ship's core reactors can handle the load. He manipulated the hologram to illustrate the proposed modifications in action. Edward, picture this. The modified drill bit with additional sensors to detect planadium-rich areas will lower onto the surface of the moon. We will initiate shallow, circular drilling of about 50 meters in diameter. As the drill is rotating and oscillating, the vacuum system will be turned on, which would suck up the loose fragments of planadium and lunar dust. The filter system will then separate the planadium and store it in a dedicated compartment. How long would it take to set it up and start operations? With the tools and materials at our disposal on board, I would estimate about 48 hours for making the necessary modifications and running some tests. As soon as we are ready, we can start small-scale extraction immediately. And what about the environmental impact? We need to be sure we are not causing significant damage to the surface of the moon. Edward nodded thoughtfully. We shall be conservative, minimum surface disturbance, and we will be continuously monitoring the structural stability of the area we are working in. If we notice any instability, we will stop the activity and reassess. Sounds promising. Let's proceed with the modifications. Time is of the essence, and every bit of planadium we could extract will bring us closer to solving the energy crisis back home. Understood. I shall start reprogramming the drill's control systems and get the engineering team started on the physical modifications. We shall also have to fine-tune the vacuum system and install the filters. Hawk paced the command center, deep in thought. The excitement of potential planadium mining was tempered by the unknown risks it posed. Hawk and Edward stood by the holographic display, thinking through the implications of their new discovery. The holographic model of the Quorum ship's drill was still projected, but now their focus had shifted to the potential dangers of their upcoming operation. Hawk turned to Edward, who was engrossed in adjusting the ship's systems for the upcoming modifications. Hawk, Edward, something has been bothering me. What's going to happen with cosmic particles inside the Quorum ship? When we first found brumium, its properties were unlocked by cosmic particles. With that much planadium inside this ship, there could be a problem if it reacts the same way. Can it? Edward paused before he answered, taking his time to think of a careful response. Edward, you are right to be concerned, Hawk. The reaction of brumium with cosmic particles did unlock some surprising properties. Planadium might react similarly. We will need to run some tests to understand its behavior better. We should also strengthen the containment fields of the ship to isolate the planadium from cosmic particle exposure within the ship. Hawk, and what about brumium itself? We have not detected any on the moon. Do you think there is any chance we will find some while we are here? Edward slowly shook his head. Edward, no, brumium did not register in any of our scans. Its absence on the moon is unusual, given its strange properties. How we discovered brumium on that secret island on Earth remains a mystery. Brumium does seem to be some kind of cosmic anomaly, almost as if it came from elsewhere in the universe. Maybe it was a meteorite that landed on Earth a long time ago. But judging by our geological understanding, brumium cannot be a part of Earth's composition. Hawk looked intrigued but puzzled. So you're saying brumium is in fact extraterrestrial? That it can't have formed on Earth? Exactly. It doesn't fit into our current geological frameworks. This makes it even more valuable and enigmatic. We need to ensure that our mining operations do not inadvertently expose us to unknown hazards, especially since we have not studied the full potential and risks of planadium. Hawk nodded as the weight of their situation sank in. All right, we will move into mining with all necessary caution. Focus your work on containment measures and monitor all cosmic particle interactions with the planadium, and do keep a lookout for any signs of brumium, no matter how improbable. Agreed. I'll start working on containing the fields and isolation protocols for the planadium samples. We will also run some simulations to predict the interactions between planadium and cosmic particles. We can't afford to get careless now. Safety comes first. Hawk, good. We are on the verge of something monumental here. Let's not overlook anything, no matter how small the detail. With that, Edward returned to the control panel, his mind already racing through the necessary adjustments and safety protocols. Hawk turned to the rest of the team, ready to relay their plan and stress the importance of caution as they stood on the precipice of groundbreaking discoveries. The desolate moonscapes of the outside world from the Quorum ship served as a reminder of the many unknowns they were about to venture into. Chad, Hawk, we also need to think about storage and transportation. Where do we store it once we get the planadium? Cargo space on the Quorum ship isn't great, and we want to make sure we design a process that would allow us to store the planadium safely and possibly transport it back to Earth. Hawk nodded, recognizing the importance of Chad's point. Hawk, you're right, Chad. We can't just think about extraction. We need to make sure we can handle the planadium safely once we've got it. Chad went on with his voice steady and analytical. With brumium's help, the Quorum ship can surely carry planadium. We should, however, aim to mine only 2 or 3 kilograms of planadium and bring it back to Earth for further study. The rest can be mined by future moon explorations. We cannot risk having too much planadium on the Quorum ship at once, especially since it might react with the cosmic particles. Hawk considered this, the wheels in his mind turning. Hawk, that makes sense. Small-scale extraction for now, and we can set up a framework for larger operations later. Edward, do you think we can modify the storage compartments to isolate the planadium effectively? Edward, who had been listening intently, stepped forward with a confident nod. Yes, we can repurpose some of the cargo holds to create a secure containment area. We'll create and use electromagnetic barriers to stabilize the planadium and prevent any unwanted interactions with cosmic particles. I'll also design a series of containment fields to provide additional layers of protection. We must also be sure this extraction process is as accurate as possible. We need to disturb as little of the lunar surface as necessary in order to have the minimal footprint and risks. Agreed. Let us now outline the steps for extraction and storage. We will extract a small amount of planadium, secure it in the modified cargo hold, and then prepare for transport back to Earth. The data we gather from this initial sample will be invaluable for planning future missions. I'll start working on the modifications right away. We'll need to run simulations to ensure the containment fields are effective, and I'll coordinate with the team to set up the extraction equipment. And I'll take care of the logistics of the mining operation, making sure we've got the right tools and protocols to handle the planadium safely. Hawk looked around at his team, once more aware of pride and determination. Hawk, we stand at the very threshold of a major breakthrough. Let's go one step at a time, making sure every detail is accounted for and that we can bring back this planadium safely. The future of our mission, and potentially the future of humanity's energy solutions, rests on our success here. With a clear plan now in place, the team set to work on their tasks. The Quorum ship was abuzz with activity as they readied themselves for this critical phase of their mission, bound together by a shared goal and the promise of what was to come. With grace, the Quorum ship's modified drills extended towards the lunar surface, moving slowly and delicately, not to disturb the fragile environment. The drills were designed to handle Earth's core conditions, but they remarkably adapted well to the low gravity of the Moon. No other is the drilling capability of the Quorum ship. It is reminiscent of the sophisticated filtration system of the gills in fish. In this design, chosen minerals were able to pass through the bottom of the ship, be processed internally, and come out from the back. In this continuous flow, the Quorum ship was able to derive valuable resources without needing to stop. The ship was mainly made of the rare mineral corundum, which gave it remarkable resilience. Due to the heat-resistant characteristics of corundum, the Quorum ship was able to endure both the scorching heat from the magma and the frigid vacuum of space, making it an ideal vessel for their perilous missions. This remarkable mineral proved its worth during their audacious journey to the Earth's core, where the ship glided effortlessly through both rock and magma. Inside the Quorum ship, the team operated within a safe and controlled environment. Advanced design ensured that drilling operations outside did not affect the interior, where the team lived and operated. The internal systems were well insulated and shielded to maintain a constant and secure atmosphere for the crew. The team could continue with their delicate drilling operations, knowing that they were a part of history. The Quorum ship, with its unique design, was not just a vessel, but a symbol of the endless possibilities that lay ahead for humanity's exploration of the cosmos. The moon dust, upon contact of the drill, sprayed out in the form of a fine mist, spreading out in almost ethereal cloudiness due to the reduced gravity. The dust, sharp and minute, floated gently around the drilling site, producing a halo-like effect, both beautiful and ominous. Inside the Quorum ship, Chad monitored the drilling operations closely, adjusting the controls to maintain a consistent and controlled descent of the drills. The display screens were showing the drills biting into the crust of the moon, the areas of planadium glowing faintly under the surface. As the drills made contact with the lunar surface, a sophisticated mechanism would kick in. Selected minerals, among them the precious planadium, were pulled through the gill-like structure of the ship, processed internally to separate the valuable components, and the remains were expelled out the back. This continuous process allowed for effective extraction without the need for frequent stops or manual interventions. Extraction system is working flawlessly. We're getting a steady flow of planadium through the filters, Chad reported. That's the beauty of corundum and our design. We can handle the extremes and keep the crew safe. It's as if the ship was built for these kinds of operations, Edward retorted. And the internal safety measures are holding up perfectly. We can operate the drills at full capacity without any risk to the team, Emily added. Hawk, monitoring the operation from the command center, could not help but feel pride and amazement at their accomplishment. We've come a long way. This ship is a testament to human ingenuity and the power of our discoveries. Let's continue with the extraction. We need to make the most of our time here. The ship's ability to seamlessly drill, extract, and process minerals while sheltering its crew was some engineering. This method, perfected on their journey to the Earth's core, had now proven its merit on the moon. The Quorum ship capabilities represented an integration of advanced technology and innovative thinking, setting a new standard for space exploration and resource extraction. Chad, drills are steady. We're maintaining the correct pressure and depth. Dust dispersion is within expected parameters. Emily watched from her station, mesmerized by the way the lunar dust acted in such low gravity. Each particle seemed to move in slow motion, forming patterns that danced within the vacuum of space. Emily, the way the dust moves is captivating. It's like watching a dance in slow motion. Keep an eye on those dust clouds. We don't want any of it interfering with the containment fields or the drills. As the drills dug deeper, the concentration of planadium increased. The shimmering blue mineral began to surface, intermixed with the gray lunar soil. The extraction process was slow and delicate, with every movement calculated to minimize disturbance and maximize yield. With utmost care, the first fragments of planadium were separated from the surrounding rock and soil. The drills worked in precision, slicing through the material with little effort. Extracted planadium was moved through a small conveyor system into the Coram ship and immediately placed into the containment fields designed by Edward. With low gravity, the extraction process had a unique quality. It was almost as if every piece of planadium floated a little before settling into the containment area. The fine dust of the moon floated round the drilling site, creating an ethereal scene against the stark background of the moon's surface. Chad, we've got the first batch. Everything's going smoothly. Hawk, from the command center, nodded in approval. Great job, team. Let's keep this pace. We're aiming for 3.2 kilograms, so precision is key. Drilling continued over the course of a few hours, each step very meticulously performed. Constant communication ensued among the team as techniques were readjusted to meet the moon's unique conditions. By the end of the operation, the Coram ship had successfully extracted 3.2 kilograms of planadium. The mineral glowed softly within its containment field, representing an accomplishment of epic proportions. The team had proved not only their ability to mine on the moon, but also secured a resource that would potentially change the energy future of Earth. The team had secured the last pieces of planadium when the moon dust started settling once more, gently falling to the surface in slow, deliberate motions. The scene outside the Coram ship was one of serene beauty, a demonstration of humanity's ingenuity and the boundless possibilities of space exploration. As the team continued to extract the planadium, it became highly conscious of the potential risks involved. Already, the Coram ship had managed to collect 3.2 kilograms of planadium. Enough, they thought, for initial tests back on Earth. The question of how planadium reacted to cosmic particles was still uppermost in their minds. Hawk was standing in the control room, watching the steady flow of planadium being worked on by the ship's revolutionary drilling system. "We are taking a risk if we take out any more planadium," he said with concern dripping from his voice. The reaction to cosmic particles is still an unknown element, and the energy output could be disastrous if we press our luck. Emily, who was standing next to him, nodded in agreement. "You are right. Although the design of the Coram ship allows us to process the mining operation quite easily, the unknowns with planadium are just too great. We should be more concerned with safety than the amount of planadium we extract." Chad, monitoring the drill operations, added, "We have already got 3.2 kilograms. That's more than enough for preliminary analysis and testing back on Earth. We could test its properties and determine proper handling procedures before we attempt extracting it in larger quantities." Edward, who had been overseeing the modification and functioning of the drilling equipment, said, "Immediately, our objective should be to understand the energy potential of planadium without jeopardizing the crew or the ship. Once we have a clearer understanding, we could plan greater-scale operations with the right safety protocols." The team decided to stop extracting any more. Gradually, they shut down the modified drilling system, and the process of securing the extracted planadium began. Another issue that came to mind was from Emily. "We need to keep the planadium safely contained. Cargo holds of the Coram ship have small space, and we must not allow accidental reactions with cosmic particles." Chad replied, "I have set up units of containment made to isolate the planadium from any external influence whatsoever. Those units should keep it stable until we get to Earth." Edward nodded his head in agreement. "Good thinking. We need to treat this material with the utmost care. We still don't know its full potential." Thinking of their achievements and what lay ahead, Hawk said, "We have taken one huge step forward. Let's get ready to get back home. We need to deliver this planadium safely and start unraveling its secrets." The team worked methodically, ensuring all was ready for their return trip, that the extracted planadium was safely stored, and that all systems were in order for the journey. The knowledge that they carried a potentially revolutionary but volatile material weighed heavily on their minds. The team was getting ready for their return trip, though the weight of the discoveries made was hard to shake off. The moon was packed with planadium, posing a potentially catastrophic threat they could hardly imagine. This powerful element, in contact with cosmic particles, could have disastrous consequences. Hawk gathered the team for a final briefing before they set off. "We need to make sure our precautions are complete. The amount of planadium on the moon is staggering, and should it interact with cosmic particles on a large scale, the result could be catastrophic." Emily, standing with her arms crossed, nodded solemnly. If the planadium on the surface of the moon were to somehow interact with cosmic particles, it could kickstart the moon's core to make it fully functional once again. "We can't let that happen. We don't know what cosmic impact it will have Earth and other planets in the solar system." Chad, who had been double-checking the containment units, finally spoke. "We've taken every possible measure to isolate the planadium we've collected. The containment units are made to prevent any outside influence, and we've double-checked that the Quorum ship structure, constructed out of cordum, perfectly seals off cosmic energies from leaking." Edward added, "The cordum material is our fail-safe. It assures us that the cosmic particles inside this ship don't find their way to connect with the planadium outside. This ship was developed for such situations, and it's weathering under these unique conditions." Jillian, who had so far silently absorbed the conversation, now spoke. "We have to remember that our actions here have far-reaching implications. We've uncovered a powerful resource, but we also hold a responsibility to maintain the cosmic balance. The potential for disaster is too great if we're not careful." Hawk gazed into the eyes of every member of his team, and in them he saw determination and understanding. "Our mission is not only about discovery, it is about stewardship. We have seen what planadium is capable of in small quantities in our simulations. We must make sure that we handle it responsibly to avoid any kind of unintended consequences. We also must consider our long-term strategy. Once we return to Earth and have more information, we will be able to come up with safer methods of larger-scale extraction so we do not disturb the cosmic balance." With no disagreements, the team knew their mission was far from over. They had made giant leaps forward in understanding what could be possible with planadium, but they also were very aware of the fragility of the balance they had to maintain. One wrong step could be disastrous to them and the whole planet. As they made the final preparations and secured the planadium, the Quorum ship began to lift up off the surface of the moon. The cordum structure in the middle of the ship ensured that the cosmic particles remained within it, not interacting destructively with surrounding matter and space. With the moon slowly falling into the background, the team felt relief and anticipation. They had managed to get through the intricacies of their mission so far, but they knew the real challenge would start when they got back to Earth. Planadium had endless possibilities, and with that came the responsibility to utilize it safely and wisely. The return trip to Earth was smooth, with the Quorum ship performing flawlessly as it traversed the vastness of space. As they drew near to their home planet, there were feelings of hope and determination among the team. They now had the opportunity to revolutionize energy and maybe even secure a brighter future for the human species. Yet they were equally aware of their need for caution in any new venture in order to stay sensitive to the cosmos's delicate balance. The re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere saw the Quorum ship slide through the Earth's atmosphere like silk, with the team ready to embark on the next phase of their mission. More than just a new source of energy, they were bringing home a new era, a promise actually tempered by the knowledge of the responsibility attached to it. Fortunately, cosmic particles remained contained within the Quorum ship due to the cordum, preventing any cosmic energies from leaking out. This kept the planadium inert and avoided catastrophic reactions. The team let out a collective sigh of relief, knowing they had maintained that very delicate balance necessary to keep their world and their mission safe. Chapter 3. Back to Old Lab. With their secret lab now compromised by the world government, Hawk faced an important decision. The precious planadium in the cargo and the Core ship itself could not afford to land or be easily detected. He made the very serious decision that the safest course of action would be to suspend the ship in Earth's atmosphere until a suitable, pre-existing laboratory location was found where they could operate without suspicion being drawn upon them. The planadium was packaged in electromagnetic containment units inside the Core ship, but they all knew it was far too dangerous to attempt any testing on the cosmic particles inside the ship. Nobody knew what the energy output and results would be, and with Brumium now incorporated into the Core ship, the possibility of unforeseen anomalies was too big to ignore. Gathering his team, Hawk laid out their situation. We need to find an existing lab where we can safely conduct our experiments. Building a new one from scratch isn't an option. We don't have the equipment or time. Emily nodded in agreement. The reaction between planadium and cosmic particles is uncharted territory. We need a safe, secluded location with the facilities already in place. Edward began to brainstorm. We need to look for abandoned research facilities, decommissioned labs, anywhere that may have the infrastructure already in place. The older, the better. Less chance of it being on anybody's radar. Hawk nodded. Let's split up the tasks. Edward, you start looking into the logistics of modifying one of those old labs. Chad, you take care of the security aspects. Make sure whatever location we choose is one we can lock down from any outside interference. Emily, keep running your simulations on the planadium interactions using the data we have. As they all got to work, they knew the weight of their situation. They were at the forefront of one of the greatest discoveries ever made, but the stakes had never been higher. The world government had been a looming threat, and one wrong move would mean catastrophic consequences on the world. Edward pulled up schematics of possible facilities. There are a few that could work. We'll need to make sure they are structurally sound and capable of holding our equipment. Chad went over security measures, making sure their chosen site could be fortified against any possible breach. We'll need to set up surveillance systems. We can't afford any more surprises. Emily, lost in thought, began calculating the possible energy outputs of planadium when exposed to cosmic particles. Hawk stood at the helm of the Core ship, his eyes fixed on the navigation screen. We need to head back to Greenland, he announced, his voice resolute. There's an old lab there, unused for the past 3 or 4 years. It's the same place we mined coritum. The extreme cold weather means no one lives there, making it an ideal location for our experiments. Emily raised a concern. What if the world government is monitoring it? We can't afford to walk into a trap. Hawk nodded. That's why we'll use the drones first. We can scan the area for any signs of surveillance or activity before we approach. Edward adjusted the ship's controls, setting the navigation to Greenland. Drones it is. We have 12 at our disposal. We'll send them out in a perimeter sweep around the lab. As the Core ship began its journey, the team prepared the drones for deployment. Chad, handling the surveillance systems, monitored the data feeds from the drones. Jillian peered over Chad's shoulder. How long until Greenland? We'll be there in about 20 minutes at our current speed, Edward replied. That should give us enough time to scan the area pretty thoroughly. The drones were lean, agile things, equipped with advanced scanning and surveillance equipment. As the ship drew closer to Greenland, the team launched them, sending them out in a coordinated pattern to cover the lab and its environs. Emily studied the drone feeds intently. We need to make sure the lab is completely abandoned and not under any covert surveillance. The drones moved noiselessly through the cold air, their sensors picking up every detail. The first few drones reported back with images of snow-covered landscapes, desolate and barren. The lab came into view, a small collection of buildings partially buried in ice. Chad analyzed the data. No heat signatures or movement so far. It looks like it's been untouched for years. Edward nodded. That's promising, but we need to be thorough. Let's get a closer look inside the buildings. The drones maneuvered closer, their cameras peeking through windows and scanning for any indication of recent activity. They sent images of the interior, dusty equipment, empty rooms, and old scientific instruments, all lying dormant. Emily let out a sigh of relief. It looks like no one's been here for a long time. We might just be in the clear. Hawk nodded, though his expression remained cautious. Good, but let's keep the drones patrolling the perimeter just in case. We can't afford to be careless. The team gathered around the central console, where the drone feeds were displayed. The lab, with its desolate appearance, seemed to be the perfect hidden sanctuary for their work. All right, Hawk said. We'll land the ship nearby and set up a secure perimeter. Our priority is to get the Planadium inside and start our experiments. We'll need to work quickly and quietly. Edward, guiding the ship towards a suitable landing spot, added, The Quorum ship's capabilities should keep us hidden from any satellite surveillance. We'll stay under the radar. As the ship descended towards the icy landscape, the team readied themselves for the next phase of their mission. The Planadium, safely stored in electromagnetic containment units, was their key to unlocking unprecedented energy solutions. But the path ahead was fraught with danger, and they had to remain vigilant. The Quorum ship touched down with a soft thud, its landing gear sinking slightly into the snow. The drones continued their patrol, ensuring no unwelcome visitors would catch them off guard. Hawk stood in the main cabin of the Quorum ship, addressing his team. All right, everybody, get your coats on. It's going to be brutally cold out there, he said, his breath visible in the chill already seeping through the ship. Our first priority is moving the Planadium. Once that's secure, we'll deal with the cosmic particles compartment. Hawk led the way out, his breath visible in the freezing air. Let's get to work. We've got a lot to do, and not much time to do it. With determination and caution, the team now headed toward the old lab to resume their groundbreaking research. In balance lay the fate of their discoveries, and possibly the future of humanity itself. Chad readjusted his thick gloves. His face became serious. We'll have to make sure that we don't expose it to any risks we don't have to. The cosmic particles are our next challenge, and we have to handle it with utmost care. Edward buttoned up his heavy coat, a grave look on his face. I'll supervise the transfer. We'll use the ship's robotic arms to minimize the direct contact. Let's move quickly and efficiently. Jillian pulled her hood up and turned to the team. Is everyone set for the cold? It's been a long time since any of us handled temperatures this extreme. Hawk nodded reassuringly. We are as ready as we can be. Just stay focused and follow the protocols. Let's get the Planadium moved first. The team, now bundled up against the harsh Arctic cold, began their careful operation. The Planadium, stored in electromagnetic units, was heavy and needed to be handled with care. Edward operated the ship's robotic arms from a control panel inside, guiding them to gently lift the units. Easy does it, Edward muttered, his eyes glued to the monitors that showed the movement of the robotic arms. We don't want any jerky movements. Chad and Emily waited beside the cargo hatch, prepared to receive the units onto a sled they had prepared to transport the material to the lab. As the hatch slid open, the chill of the cold air slammed into them, but they fought through it, determined. First units coming down, Edward said in a steady voice. The robotic arms slowly lowered the electromagnetic storage unit onto the sled, its smooth surface glinting faintly in the weak sunlight. Got it, Chad said, strapping the unit into the sled. Next one. One by one, the units were gingerly transferred and secured. The team moved quickly, their movements fluent and harmonious despite the biting cold. The moment all the Planadium was safely on the sled, Hawk turned to the next critical part of the exercise. Now for the cosmic particles, he said, his tone serious. Remember, we're talking about unknown energy outputs here. We have to be even more careful. Edward readjusted the controls so that the focus would shift to the area containing the cosmic particles. We'll do the same process, but with even more caution. The containment field is stable, but we don't want to take any chances. The team moved the sled with the Planadium to a secure area inside the lab, then returned to the ship. The area containing the cosmic particles was more complex, with added, intricate containment measures not to allow any leakage or interaction with the planetium. "Ready?" Hawk asked, looking around at his team. "Ready," Emily replied, her eyes focused and determined. Edward once again manipulated the robotic arms, moving with increased precision this time. The compartment containing the cosmic particles was slowly lifted and transferred to a specially prepared chamber in the lab designed to keep the cosmic particles isolated and secure. "Slow and steady," Edward reminded himself, his hands steady on the controls. "We can't afford any mistakes here." This, after what seemed like an eternity, got secured in its new position. People sighed in relief, and the tension in the air started to dissipate. "Well done, everyone," Hawk said with pride in his voice. "Now let's go inside and warm up. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but we've made a good start." The cold was biting outside, but inside, the fire of their determination burned brightly as the team knew it had crossed a major hurdle. The planetium and cosmic particles were at last placed safely for the next stage in their groundbreaking research. As they trooped back into the relative warmth of the lab, the team knew they had crossed another major hurdle. The planetium and cosmic particles were now safely stowed away in preparation for the next stage in their groundbreaking research. Inside, Emily, Jillian, Chad, and Hawk set to work on creating their makeshift lab within the abandoned facility in Greenland. The primary objective of their experiment was to determine how planetium reacted to cosmic particles, a discovery potentially leading toward rewriting their knowledge regarding both substances. The first and foremost step in their experiment would be to construct a containment chamber fit to house the interaction between planetium and cosmic particles. This chamber would have to be strong, versatile, and have sophisticated monitoring equipment that would capture the smallest detail of the experiment. The group flocked around a large table in the center of the lab, the surface littered with blueprints and technical schematics. Emily, who had taken the lead on the design, started sketching out the first ideas. "We're going to need a chamber that's small enough to control, but robust enough to handle any unexpected reactions," Emily said steadily. She drew a rectangle representing the outer shell of the chamber and began adding annotations for double-walled that reinforced glass with electromagnetic shielding. This shielding would prevent any accidental leakage of energy that might jeopardize the experiment or put the team at risk. Jillian, with her materials science background, suggested, "For the outer shell, we should use borosilicate glass for its strength and resistance to thermal shock. The inner layer can be made of a specialized polymer that can withstand high radiation levels." Chad added, "And we should integrate layers of lead and copper for additional radiation shielding and to prevent any electromagnetic interference." Hawk emphasized the importance of structural integrity. The chamber must be airtight and capable of withstanding any internal pressure changes. We can't afford any structural weaknesses. Emily nodded. "I'll incorporate reinforcement ribs along the chamber's length to distribute any stress evenly." Next, they needed to integrate sensors and monitoring equipment. Emily sketched out locations for temperature sensors, radiation detectors, and high-resolution cameras. Chad, who was overseeing the electronics, explained, "We need to position these sensors at strategic points to get a full spectrum of data. Temperature sensors should be placed at both ends and the middle of the chamber. Radiation detectors need to be sensitive enough to detect even the slightest changes." Jillian pointed to the diagram. "We should also add infrared cameras to capture thermal images and ultraviolet cameras to detect any high-energy reactions." With the design finalized, the team entered the construction phase. They sourced materials from the Quorum ship's reserves, which included the borosilicate glass and specialized polymers. Custom parts and reinforcement ribs were fabricated in the lab using a 3D printer. Emily and Jillian took charge of the chamber's assembly. They bonded the materials in layers, each perfectly in place and aligned. The reinforced glass panels were fitted with precision, and the electromagnetic shielding was carefully fitted between the layers. When the chamber was done, Chad and Hawk started the calibration and testing part. He carefully tested every sensor, making sure it was correctly calibrated and able to provide reliable data. Chad connected the sensors to the central control system. "We have to run a series of baseline tests to make sure that everything is working right," he said. Hawk nodded. "Let's start with temperature and radiation. We'll simulate various conditions to see how the chamber holds up." They ran the chamber through a number of simulated conditions, including temperature changes and radiation bursts. The sensors worked perfectly, logging accurate and consistent readings. After several hours of testing and adjustments, the chamber was finally ready. Emily ran over the final setup to make sure every component was in place and functioning as it was supposed to. "Everything looks good," Emily said, satisfied with their work. "The chamber's ready for the experiment." The team stepped back to admire their creation. Their containment chamber now occupied center stage in the lab, a testament to their collective expertise and their determination. It was specifically designed to withstand the unknown and capture the extraordinary, providing a secure environment in which to conduct this groundbreaking experiment. With the containment chamber finally built and ready for use, the next task was to design a mechanism that would safely transfer the piece of planadium into the chamber to interact with the cosmic particles. This mechanism had to be precise, reliable, and able to handle the special properties of planadium. The team sat around the lab table once more, outlining their ideas and discussing different designs. It was Emily again who took charge of the issue. She outlined the needs for the transfer mechanism. "We need a system that will hold the piece of planadium securely, transport it into the chamber, and release it at the right moment. It also needs to be made with materials that won't react with planadium or cosmic particles," Emily started off. Hawk then suggested that they use a mechanical arm. "A robotic arm with fine motor control would do the trick. It will give us control over manipulating the piece of planadium with precision." Chad agreed. "We can use servo motors for exact movement and ensure that the arm is coated with a non-reactive material." Jillian, considering properties, added, "We should use titanium for the structure of the arm for strength and resistance to corrosion. The gripping mechanism should be coated with Teflon to prevent chemical reactions." Emily then outlined a docking mechanism on the side of the containment chamber. The arm must be able to dock with the chamber and create an airtight seal to prevent contamination. Chad nodded. "We can use a magnetic docking ring to ensure a tight seal. The arm should extend through a small port in the chamber, and the rest of the mechanism can be on the outside." The team's next problem was the precision of motion with the arm. Hawk made sure to stress the need for accuracy. "We need to be able to control the arm remotely with millimeter precision. Any sudden movements will be disruptive of the experiment." Emily came up with the idea of using a combination of optical sensors and feedback loops. "We can install optical sensors that will monitor the arm's position and use feedback loops to adjust its movement in real time." Safety was the prime consideration in their design. Gillian suggested several safety features. "We will need emergency shut-off switches and a containment protocol in case of any unexpected reactions. The arm should be able to retract quickly and seal the chamber immediately if anything goes wrong." With the design finalized, the team set up to construct the transfer mechanism. They secured titanium rods and sheets from the ship's reserves and used the lab's 3D printer to manufacture custom joints and connectors. Emily and Chad worked on putting the arm together, carefully attaching the servo motors and sensors. The titanium structure was crafted for strength and precision, while the Teflon-coated gripping mechanism was meant to hold onto the planadium fragments securely. Assembled, the arm was carefully calibrated and extensively tested. Chad hooked up the control system and started running simulations. "We have to check the arm's range of motion and make sure it can move without jitter and can make an accurate move." Hawk watched the feedback from the sensors, making changes to the control algorithms. "We want the feedback loops to be responsive and able to adjust the arm's movements in real time." They ran several test scenarios, moving a dummy object into and out of the chamber. The optical sensors and feedback loops performed flawlessly, ensuring precision control over the arm's movements. After many tests and adjustments, the transfer mechanism was ready. Emily went through the final setup, making sure every component was in place and working as intended. "The arm is ready," Emily said, satisfied with their work. We can now safely transfer the planadium fragment into the containment chamber. The team stepped back and marveled at the mechanical arm. The transfer mechanism, now an integral part of their setup, was a testament to their ingenuity and collaboration. It was designed to handle the unknown properties of planadium and cosmic particles, providing a safe and controlled environment for their groundbreaking experiment. With the containment chamber and planadium transfer mechanism ready, the next step was to isolate the cosmic particles. The latter part of the project required extreme precision and care in the face of the unforeseeable nature of cosmic particles. First, the team went through what they knew about cosmic particles. Their unique properties had been the key to unlocking the potential of Brumium, but their full capability and potential dangers remained largely unknown. They needed to be isolated in a chamber that would allow the team to observe their interactions with planadium without risking exposure. The chamber had to be perfectly sealed, no chance of particles getting out into the lab environment. Emily sketched the design for the isolation chamber. We need a double-walled chamber made of curator. It's the only material that will contain the energy these particles emit. The inner wall will contain the particles, and the outer wall will provide an additional layer of security. The isolation chamber needed to be integrated with the containment chamber. This integration would allow the planadium fragment to be transferred into the isolation chamber without direct exposure to the lab environment. Hawk suggested using an airlock system. We can build a small airlock between the containment and isolation chambers. The planadium fragment can be moved into the airlock, and once sealed, it can be transferred into the isolation chamber. Curator was chosen for its unparalleled ability to contain energy and was readily available in the old lab. The team gathered the necessary materials and set to work. Chad and Jillian worked on constructing the isolation chamber, carefully assembling the curator panels and sealing them together. The airlock system was built using high-strength titanium and fitted with electromagnetic seals to ensure no leakage. Sealing the chamber was crucial. Any failure in the seals could result in a catastrophic release of energy. Emily and Hawk meticulously checked each seal using advanced scanning equipment to ensure there were no gaps or weaknesses. We need to be absolutely certain there are no leaks, Emily emphasized. Even a tiny breach could be dangerous. The chamber was equipped with emergency shutoff systems. If any instability was detected, the chamber would automatically seal and lock down, containing any potential hazards. They were stored in a specially designed compartment that had to be transferred into the isolation chamber safely without any exposure. Chad and Edward devised a transfer conduit that connected the storage container to the isolation chamber. It was made of cordum and fitted with electromagnetic seals. We will use the conduit to transfer the particles directly into the isolation chamber, Edward said. The electromagnetic seals will not allow any particles to escape during the transfer. After the isolation chamber and the transfer conduit were built, the team started calibrating the system. They conducted multiple simulations to ensure that the particles would be transferred and contained safely. Emily was monitoring the performance of the system, manipulating the electromagnetic fields as required. We have to ensure the particles stay stable during the transfer. Any type of fluctuation would cause a release of energy. When everything was set up, the team was ready for the final transfer. Hawk repeated the safety protocols for the last time. Remember, once we start the transfer, there's no turning back. We need to be ready for anything. The team stationed themselves around the control panel, each person ready at his or her station. Emily began the transfer, and the cosmic particles started moving through the conduit and into the isolation chamber. The electromagnetic seals held, and the particles were safely contained. "The particles are stable," Emily reported, relief creeping into her voice. "We are ready for the next step." The isolation of cosmic particles was complete, and the stage was set for the final phase of their experiment. The meticulous planning and execution of the team had paid off, providing a safe and controlled environment for the unprecedented interaction of planadium with cosmic particles. With the containment chamber and isolation of cosmic particles firmly in place, The next logical step was to incorporate comprehensive safety protocols. The team was well aware of the potential risks involved with their experiment and had to make sure that the entire operation was safe. This Greenland lab, plunged into the frozen nothingness, had always been a haven for high-risk, high-reward research. The icy cold and isolation built in an extra level of security, but it was not enough to keep them safe from the unknowns that their pending experiment had in store. Hawk, Emily, Chad, and Jillian all ringed the central control console. Emily led off explaining the safety procedures to them. We need to assume that any interaction between planadium and cosmic particles could release an unprecedented amount of energy. We need to prepare for containment and, if necessary, emergency evacuation. They started by strengthening the structural integrity of the lab. They coated the walls and floors with the same resilient material used in the Quorum ship, corundum. In case of an energy release, this would be contained within the lab. Edward and Chad reinforced the support beams and sealed off all entry points so that no energy or particles could escape. They then set to work designing an automated monitoring system. Sensors would constantly check for any changes in energy levels, pressure, and temperature within the containment chamber. Jillian programmed a series of sensors to detect even the slightest changes, with the data fed into a central control unit capable of initiating emergency protocols if needed. Hawk was adamant that there needed to be multiple fail-safes. If the energy levels spike, we need to be able to shut everything down instantly. We can't rely on just one system. They installed redundant power supplies and emergency shutoff switches at multiple locations around the lab. These could be triggered either manually or automatically by the monitoring system. Emily put forward an emergency evacuation plan. If something goes wrong, we need to be able to get out of here fast. We'll set up escape routes and make sure everyone knows them by heart. They mapped out the shortest paths to the Quorum ship, making sure each team member had a clear route to safety. Chad added a proposal for remote-operated drones equipped with extinguishing agents and containment foam. If we can't get close to the chamber, these can help manage any fires or leaks from a distance. They retrofitted several of the lab's existing drones, equipping them with fire suppression systems and high-strength containment nets. Finally, Emily insisted on running full-scale drills. We need to practice every possible scenario. Everyone has to know exactly what to do if things go wrong. Over the next few hours, the team ran through various emergency situations, from minor containment breaches to full-scale evacuations. Each drill helped to refine their responses and get everyone prepared for the worst. As they completed the final drill, the weight of the task settled over them. The risks were huge, but so were the rewards. The planadium and cosmic particles held the key to unlocking new realms of energy and understanding. The team's meticulous planning and unwavering commitment to safety provided a solid foundation for their groundbreaking work. With all safety protocols in place, Hawk gave the final nod. We're ready. Let's make history, but let's do it safely. The team took their positions. Each team member was now fully aware of the stakes and their role in the unfolding experiment. The stage was set for a scientific endeavor that could redefine humanity's understanding of the universe. With everything set in place and safety protocols put firmly in place, the team was ready to conduct the experiment. The air in the lab was tense, but filled with a sense of purpose and anticipation. Each member of the team knew his role and the importance of what they were about to execute. Hawk was at the control console, watching through the various systems. Emily, is the planadium secure? Emily, who was working at a side station, confirmed, the fragment of planadium is in place and ready to be transferred into the containment chamber. Chad checked the readings from the containment chamber to see that everything was stable. All systems are green. The chamber is keeping the required conditions. Edward, who had been carefully setting up the equipment, made the final adjustments on the planadium transfer mechanism. We're set, initiating the transfer now. The planadium fragment, held tightly in its holder, was slowly moved along the automated track. Team members watched intently as it moved from its secure storage toward the containment chamber. The transfer mechanism moved with precision, most carefully trying to avoid any kind of disturbance possible. As the planetium neared the containment chamber, Hawk activated the communication link. Containment chamber doors opening, transfer in progress. The chamber doors, lined with cordon for maximum safety, slid open with ease. The planetium fragment was guided into place and suspended within the containment field. Emily monitored the particle isolation system and confirmed the cosmic particles were stable and contained. "Planetium is in position," she reported. "Cosmic particles are ready for interaction." Hawk nodded, taking a deep breath. "All right, team, this is it. Initiating the first phase of the experiment. Emily, begin the controlled exposure of cosmic particles." With such caution, Emily adjusted the controls, allowing the isolated cosmic particles to contact the piece of planetium very slowly. The lab's monitoring systems were immediately flooded with data, capturing even minute changes in energy levels, temperature, and the behavior of the particles. As the cosmic particles started hitting the planetium, a soft glow emanated from the containment chamber. The readings for energy levels started spiking, but the containment field remained steady, absorbing and dissipating the extra energy. Chad's eyes were stuck to the monitors. Energy levels are rising, but within expected parameters. The planetium is responding as predicted. Edward adjusted the viewing angle of one of the cameras, giving the team a clear view of the interaction. "We're seeing a significant energy output, but the containment field is holding strong." Hawk kept a close eye on the overall status of the system. "Emily, what does the particle behavior look like?" Emily scanned the data feeds. "The cosmic particles are integrating with the planetium matrix. We're seeing a stable fusion process, generating a consistent energy output." Minutes dragged out like hours while the team witnessed the interaction. The planetium fragment glowed brighter, and the energy levels rose further. The containment chamber, designed to handle such extremes, held its integrity, ensuring that the experiment proceeded safely. After what seemed like an eternity, the glow began to stabilize, the indication that the interaction had reached a steady state. Slowly, Emily began to reduce the exposure of cosmic particles, gradually bringing the experiment to a controlled conclusion. "Exposure levels are decreasing. Interaction stabilizing," Emily announced. Hawk felt a mix of relief and exhilaration, giving the final command: "End the exposure and secure the planetium." "Excellent work, everyone." As the containment chamber sealed shut and the cosmic particles were re-isolated, the team let out a collective sigh of relief. The first part of their groundbreaking experiment had succeeded. Chad summarized the results. "We have successfully proven the fact that planetium can interact with cosmic particles to generate energy. The containment systems worked perfectly." Edward, still working through the data, added, "This is just the beginning. We've proven the concept. Now we need to understand the full potential and applications of this interaction." Hawk cast his eyes about his team, eyes that were proud. "We have taken a monumental step forward. Let's continue to analyze the data and plan our next moves. Today, we've made history." This lab, once silent and icy, was now buzzing with the excitement of discovery. The team's rigorous planning and careful execution had paid off, opening the door to a new era of energy and understanding. As they began to process the results, the possibilities for future research and applications seemed endless. The energy produced by a fragment of planetium was astonishing. The readings indicated an output of 11,000 megawatt-hours of electricity. This single fragment could power a city the size of New York for an entire day. However, the energy output was decreasing steadily at a pace of 23.27 megawatts per day. Despite this decline, the fragment still promised to provide energy for approximately 1.29 years, or about 471 days. The lab was abuzz with the excitement of the team processing these results. Standing by the main console, Emily was a study in thought as she analyzed the streaming data. "This is amazing," she said, full of wonder in her voice. "A sliver of planetium, enough energy to run New York City for a day. The energy output continues to decline daily, and we are looking at well over a year of continuous energy, even with the decline." Chad, who had been analyzing the energy output curve, gestured in agreement. "That's right, it's a nice steady decline, but the starting output is so high that even with the decline, it stays a significant power source for a long time." Edward, being the practical-minded one, added his input. Now, what's important is to understand why it drops off. Is that just what Planadium does, or is there a factor we haven't considered? Hawk, pacing back and forth, was already several steps ahead. Imagine the potential if we could stabilize the energy output. If a fragment can provide this much power, then scaling up could reshape our approach to energy. We could even put an end to the energy crisis. Emily nodded. And we have to ponder the implications of scalability. If we could harvest and use more than one fragment, then the potential is astronomical. But we also have to ensure that it is safe and sustainable. Chad interjected with a note of caution. We also have to be mindful of the risks. The interaction of Planadium with cosmic particles is still not fully understood. We need to conduct more tests to understand the long-term effects and any potential hazards. Hawk turned to Edward. Can we adjust our containment and isolation protocols to extend the stability of the Planadium's energy output? Edward thought for a moment. We might be able to refine the containment field to reduce the rate of decline. It'll take some experimentation, but I believe it's possible. We should also investigate if combining multiple fragments could create a more stable and prolonged energy source. Emily, capturing the essence of their conversation, concluded, the key is to balance the energy output and ensure safety. If we can do that, we have the potential to not only solve the energy crisis, but also advance our understanding of cosmic energy interactions. The team was now at a critical juncture. The discovery of Planadium's energy potential was a breakthrough, but it came with a host of new questions and challenges. The path forward would require careful experimentation, innovation, and a relentless pursuit of understanding. As they continued to discuss and plan their next steps, the lab buzzed with a renewed sense of purpose. The possibilities were vast, and the team was determined to unlock the full potential of Planadium, paving the way for a new era of energy and technological advancement. Despite their tireless efforts and numerous tests, the team was unable to determine why the energy output from Planadium steadily decreased. This perplexing behavior of the element resisted all their attempts to stabilize or understand it fully. One evening, after a long day of experiments, the team gathered in the break room within the lab. The mood was frustration mixed with contemplation. Emily was the first to speak aloud what had been on the minds of everyone. Maybe this is just the way the universe works. Stars die, and maybe this is the same with Planadium. Its energy output decreases over time, and there's nothing we can do to change that. Hawk leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. It's possible. Everything in the universe has a life cycle. Planadium might be no different. We might be looking at a natural decay process that we simply can't alter. Edward nodded in agreement. We've observed similar phenomena on a cosmic scale. Stars, for example, burn brightly, but eventually exhaust their fuel and die. Planadium might be following a similar pattern. Its energy diminishes as part of a natural process. Chad, who had been staring at the data on his tablet, let out a heavy sigh. It's frustrating, but maybe we need to accept that some mysteries remain unsolved. We have learned so much about Planadium's potential, but its decreasing energy output might just be a fundamental property. Jillian, the eternal optimist, sought a silver lining. Even if we can't stop the energy decline, the initial output is still incredibly valuable. We can harness that energy for significant periods, and that can still make a huge difference in addressing the energy crisis. Hawk nodded. You're right, Jillian. We should focus on what we can achieve with the energy we do get from Planadium. It might not be eternal, but it's still a game changer. Emily smiled softly. And who knows, maybe future generations will solve this mystery. For now, we've made a breakthrough that can benefit humanity immensely. Edward leaned forward, determination in his eyes. Let's document everything we have learned and develop protocols for harnessing Planadium safely. We may not have all the answers, but we have enough to make a real difference. Hawk rose to his feet, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Agreed, we have done incredible work here. Let's make sure it leads to something meaningful. We may not have unlocked all the secrets of Planadium, but we have taken a huge step forward. As the team dispersed to further their work, there was an element of acceptance combined with determination. They might never fully understand why the energy output from planetium decreased, but they had discovered enough to make a difference. The mystery of planetium would remain, like so many of the universe's other enigmas, but its potential to change the world was undeniable. Now, the team possessed a working planetium energy source that could be converted into cells and distributed worldwide. The only problem was that the process of converting planetium into usable energy using cosmic particles was continuous and complex. There were a number of problems with this method. Humanity would have to mine planetium fragments from the moon, and the only cosmic particles available were those which Hawk had brought to Earth. Despite the many tests and experiments conducted, the quantity of cosmic particles remained unchanged. Their stable nature was both a relief and a constraint, as they were a crucial component in the energy conversion process. Hawk called for a meeting in the ship's main conference room. He had been thinking through the implications of their discovery and the potential dangers it held. "We've accomplished something big here," Hawk began, addressing the team. "We've got a clean, sustainable source of energy that can change our world. But there's a catch. We need both planetium and cosmic particles, and the latter are really quite rare. We have the only known supply." Emily nodded. "And as we've seen, while planetium is abundant on the moon, it's still a huge undertaking to mine and transport it. The process requires precision and resources." Chad leaned forward, concern etched on his face. "The real issue is the cosmic particles. Their stability is both a blessing and a curse. We can't generate more, and their misuse could be catastrophic." Gillian, ever the pragmatist, added, "So what's our plan? We can't just sit on this discovery. The world needs this energy, especially with the ongoing crisis." Hawk's expression turned serious. "We distribute the energy cells, but we do it under strict control. We need to mine planetium carefully and use the cosmic particles judiciously. We can't let this technology fall into the wrong hands. The potential for misuse is too great." Edward, who had been quiet, spoke up. "But how do we ensure that? Once the energy cells are out there, we lose control." Hawk sighed. "We establish protocols. We only distribute to critical sectors, places where the energy is needed most and can be monitored, and we keep the conversion process a closely guarded secret." Emily looked thoughtful. "We could create a centralized authority to oversee the distribution and use of planetium energy cells. This body would ensure compliance with our protocols and handle any issues that arise." Chad nodded. "And we must keep the cosmic particles under lock and key. Only a select few should know their location and how to use them." Hawk agreed. "Exactly. We must be vigilant. The potential for good is enormous, but so is the potential for disaster. We can't afford to let this power be misused." The next few days were spent making intricate plans for mining, handling, and distribution of planetium energy cells. Yes, the challenges were enormous, but so were the stakes. They had the power to change the world, and so they had to make sure it was done safely and responsibly. In quieter moments, Hawk grappled with the fact of his decision to keep the cosmic particles out of anyone else's hands. It was selfish, he knew, but the risk was too great. The power they held was untapped and unpredictable. If it got into the wrong hands, the consequences could be catastrophic. For now, he would carry the burden of that responsibility, protecting the world from the very power that could save it. Chapter 4. For the People. With everything planned out in detail, it was time for Hawk and his team to make the historic announcement to the world. They had decided to keep cosmic particles and brumium a secret, since this was a very dangerous and critical finding. The world only needed to know about planetium and the cure for an ailing energy crisis. Knowing that they were being pursued by the world governments, the team knew they had to tread with care when announcing this to the public. They decided that the news was to be released by a trusted news channel. Hawk gathered his team in the communication room on the Quorum ship. It was tense, as the excitement of change mixed with a prevailing apprehension. They knew the implications of their news were real. "All right, guys," said Hawk, his voice calm. "This is it. We're about to change the world, but we've got to do this right. We've recorded our findings, and now it's time to send them out. Remember, we don't talk about cosmic particles or brumium. The only thing we want the world to know is that we have found a new element called planadium, which can ensure the world no longer suffers from an energy crisis. Emily, whose research had been instrumental in the findings, gave a thumbs up. We've got everything ready, guys. The video explains our findings, the energy output of planadium, and how it can be harnessed. We have at the same time elaborated on the safety measures and the controlled distribution plan. Chad added, and we've definitely stressed how important it is to mine planadium responsibly. The world needs to understand that this is not some sort of temporary fix, but an actual solution that they need to approach with care in the long term. Jillian glanced over at Hawk. Our contact at the news channel is ready. He understands the need for discretion and will broadcast the video without giving away our location. Edward, who handled the technical side, gave a thumbs up. It's all encrypted and secure. The transmission won't be traceable. Hawk took a deep breath. Let's get it done. They gathered around as the video was sent to their contact at the news channel. On the screen, they saw the progress bar, which ticked forward, each second seeming to pass at the speed of an eternity. In the video, Hawk appeared first, his face grim but his eyes hopeful. People of Earth, we bring with us an announcement of the utmost importance. My team and I found a new source of energy, and this source can finally end the global energy crisis. It is called planadium, a sustainable and super powerful new energy source. We have thoroughly tested it and found that even the slightest piece of planadium can give out an enormous amount of energy. The video cut to Emily, who explained the science behind their discovery, supported with a couple of charts and graphs, showing the amount of energy and what this energy could be applied to. Chad explained how they would mine it and how important it would be to extract it in a responsible manner. Jillian explained the safety protocols they had taken. The video then cut to Edward as he explained how the distribution would happen and what measures they would take to have the energy used both wisely and safely. This is a game changer for mankind, but it requires cooperation and responsibility from all of us. Finally, the video cut back to Hawk. We have sent this message to inform you of our success and to reassure you that we are working around the clock to bring this new energy to the world. We ask for your support and understanding as we continue this journey. Together, we can overcome the energy crisis and build a brighter future. The video ended, and the upload was complete. The team watched as their message was sent, knowing it would soon be broadcast to millions around the world. Hawk turned to his team with a determined look in his eyes. We've done it. Now we wait and see how the world responds. But whatever happens, we've made a difference. Back at the news channel, the atmosphere buzzed with the usual clamor of breaking news and rapid-fire reports. Jonathan, the editor and one of the few contacts Hawk had built trust with, had just received the video file. He quickly isolated himself in his office, plugging in his headphones to review the footage. As the video played, Jonathan's eyes widened in a mix of amazement and anxiety. The implications of the discovery were immense. Aware of the sensitivity and the potential backlash, Jonathan knew he needed to seek approval from the news director. With the video file safely saved, he headed into the director's office with each step filled with a sense of urgency. He knocked and entered the room where the news director, Mr. Collins, was seated behind his large desk, surrounded by monitors displaying various news feeds. "Mr. Collins, I need a moment of your time," Jonathan said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Make it quick, Jonathan," Mr. Collins replied, not looking up from his screen. Jonathan handed him a USB drive. "You need to see this. It's from Dr. Hawk and his team. They've made a groundbreaking discovery that could solve the world energy crisis." Mr. Collins took the drive in his hand and plugged it into his computer. As he watched the video, his expression changed from indifference to shock, and then to a cold, calculating stare. He paused the video halfway through, leaned back in his chair, and looked at Jonathan with a stern expression. "Jonathan, this cannot go on air," Mr. Collins said firmly. Jonathan's heart sank. "But sir, this is huge. This could change everything. The world needs to know." Mr. Collins shook his head. "You don't understand. There are forces at play here that go beyond our control. Broadcasting this will put us in danger. This conversation stays between us, and I'm ordering you not to speak of it to anyone else." Jonathan felt a chill go down his spine. The director's tone and the look in his eyes told him that something was seriously wrong. He nodded reluctantly. "Understood, sir." Mr. Collins leaned forward, his voice lowering to a whisper. "Dispose of that file, Jonathan. This conversation never happened." Jonathan left the office. His mind was racing. With each step to his desk, he could feel the weight of the situation bearing down on his shoulders. It was clear to him that there were powerful interests that had to suppress the information. He knew he couldn't ignore Hawk's message, but he had to find a way to get the truth out. As soon as he reached his desk, Jonathan sent an encrypted message to Hawk, letting him know what was going on. He knew they needed to come up with a new plan to get the world to find out about the Planadium discovery without alerting the unwanted. Almost immediately, his phone buzzed with a response from Hawk. "Understood. Stay safe. We'll figure something out." Jonathan drew in a deep breath, preparing for the task ahead. He cast his eyes across the bustling newsroom, knowing that within its walls lay secrets that could reshape the world. Hawk's screen flickered to life with Jonathan's somber face. The usual lines of worry had deepened into something more profound. "They shut us down, Hawk," Jonathan said, his voice tinged with frustration. "My boss didn't just refuse to air it. He warned me flat out to keep my mouth shut. There's something not right, and it feels like a bigger force is at play here." Hawk's face tightened. The room fell silent as the weight of what had just been said sunk in. "We can't let them bury it. The world needs to know." Jonathan nodded, a flicker of resolve crossing his eyes. "I've been thinking about that. There's an old-school method that might just work. It's risky, but it's our best shot." Hawk leaned forward. "What do you have in mind?" Jonathan took a deep breath. "Pirate radio stations. They're off-grid, hard to track, and can broadcast to a wide audience. We can use them to spread the message far and wide, bypassing the mainstream channels entirely." The idea hung in the air, bold and fraught with danger. Emily broke the silence. "Pirate radio? Isn't that illegal?" Jonathan smiled grimly. "Desperate times call for desperate measures. Besides, this isn't about legality. It's about survival. We need to reach the people." Chad nodded. "He's right. If we can't use conventional media, we have to adapt. How do we start?" Jonathan's eyes gleamed with determination. "I have a contact in the underground radio scene. He runs one of the biggest pirate stations. If we can convince him to air our message, others might follow." Hawk stood up, his mind racing through the crystallizing plan. "Do it, Jonathan. Make contact. We'll prepare the message. This has to be foolproof." Jonathan nodded curtly. "I'll set up the meeting. We'll need to be careful, though. The government's eyes are everywhere." With a click, the call ended, and the team went into action. Everyone's moves were precise and purposeful. The movement said more about the seriousness of the situation than any words could. The thought of the future of humanity kept them going. Hawk turned around the room, his voice firm but calm. "This is it, team. We're up against very powerful adversaries, but we have truth on our side. Let's get to work." At that, tension crept into the room, with each member experiencing an ingrained sense of urgency and purpose. They knew the way forward would be fraught with danger, but they were ready to face it head-on. And so, the first steps of their daring plan began to take place. The team gathered into the command center of the lab's makeshift room, with its dim lighting reflecting the seriousness of their mission. Jonathan's proposal had found a flicker of hope, but it was tempered by the harsh realities they faced. Emily said the very thing that was eating at them all. "But even if we manage to get this on the air, how do we know people will tune in? With the energy crisis, most of the more traditional means of communication are down, and pirate radio is a crapshoot." Jonathan, by now standing back in the room, leaned against the table. "It's true. Not everybody has radios, but those who do are often the ones searching for information outside the government's version. It's our best shot at reaching the dissenters, the curious, and the desperate for hope." Chad nodded thoughtfully. "We need to make sure that our message isn't just broadcast, but heard. We need to create a buzz, something that'll make people sit up and take notice. Maybe we can spread rumors or hints about the broadcast through underground networks." Hawk rubbed his chin. We need to use a multi-angled attack. Jonathan, your contact in the pirate radio scene, is he able to get other stations? Create a network that broadcasts simultaneously? Jonathan's eyes lit up. It's possible. My contact has ties to several other operators. If we can get them all on board, we can blanket the airwaves. We'll have to work fast and keep it under wraps to avoid government interference. Gillian, who had remained quiet up to this point as she worked things out in her mind, spoke. We should break the message up into segments, make it interesting, hard-hitting, start with the discovery, then go into the effects on the energy crisis, and then, finally, the planadium. We need to make it clear this isn't just another conspiracy theory. Emily added, and we need to keep it short and impactful, long enough to explain, but short enough to hold attention. Maybe we can include testimonies, visuals, anything to make it real. Hawk turned to Jonathan. Can we include a digital component? Maybe a website or a series of encrypted files that people can download for more information? It's tricky, Jonathan agreed. With the internet going in and out, we'll need to use decentralized networks, maybe peer-to-peer. It's not perfect, but it can be made to work. Getting the initial message out and then letting it spread organically is the trick. Hawk stood, energizing the team. All right, let's get to work on content. Jonathan, secure the network and coordinate with your contact. Emily, Chad, Gillian, we need to script this message to perfection. We are not just informing, we are lighting a spark. As they worked into the night, the sense of camaraderie and resolve began to settle over them. And thus, against the backdrop of the world teetering on the edge, they prepared to take their message to the people. The next morning, the room buzzed with activity as the team finalized their plans. The air was tense, filled with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. The message was ready, carefully crafted to inform as well as captivate. Jonathan's contact had confirmed the participation of several pirate radio operators, and a network, ready to reach thousands, was set. Jonathan stood in front of a makeshift recording setup. A microphone connected to a portable transmitter was all he needed. He tested the equipment. Everything seemed to be working. All right, we're good to go. I've synchronized the frequencies with our contacts. We'll be live in 15 minutes. Hawk, Emily, Chad, and Gillian gathered around the console. Their faces were illuminated by the soft glow of the control panel. Hawk took a deep breath. This is it. No turning back now. Emily adjusted her headset, her fingers trembling slightly. We've done everything we can to prepare. Now we just have to hope people are listening. Jonathan glanced at his clock. 10 minutes. Let's run through the segments one last time. We start with the introduction, then the discovery of planadium, its potential to solve the energy crisis, and finally, the call to action. The final seconds ticked by, and Jonathan gave a thumbs up. We're live in 3, 2, 1. The red light on the transmitter flickered to life, and Jonathan's voice filled the airwaves, speaking out across the ether. Good evening, people of the world. My name is Jonathan, and tonight, I bring you news that has the power to change our future forever. Please listen carefully to what I am sharing with you, for it is nothing less than revolutionary. Many of you have borne the burden of an energy crisis that seems endless. Our cities have dimmed, our industries have ground to a halt. Our lives have been confined by the limitations of our current resources. But what if I told you there is hope? What if I told you that there is already within our grasp a solution? This solution is in the form of planadium, an amazing mineral capable of generating enormous amounts of energy. Let me first explain its discovery, and then what it means to us all. It was the journey that began with Hawk and his team of dedicated scientists, engineers, and explorers. While avoiding the stringent pursuit of the world government, they had come to the moon upon whispers of an extraordinary mineral. Their mission was fraught with dangers and obstacles, but their determination was unwavering. When they finally reached the moon, they discovered something astonishing in the Tycho crater, a treasure trove of planadium. They could manage to extract only a few fragments of the powerful mineral, since the process of extraction was delicate and required precision. Coming back to Earth into the safety of their lab, hidden away, they began to experiment. And what they found was beyond their imagination. One fragment of planadium can produce 11,000 megawatt hours of electricity. To put that into perspective, the energy that powers a city like New York for one full day is equivalent to 11,000 megawatt hours of electricity. Even as the energy output decreases at a pace of 23.27 megawatts per day, the power in one fragment can last for up to 471 days. However, the journey was not without its toll of huge struggle. The threats and obstacles that Hawk and his team had to face were constant. The research had to be kept secret. They had to move from place to place, not to get caught by those who would want to suppress this discovery to maintain control over our energy resources. However, they endured this all, keeping the vision of a world in which energy is abundant and accessible to everyone. That vision tonight becomes our reality. Planadium is not just a mineral. It is a hope, a promise of a brighter future. We will never again have to excavate our energy resources from the earth. Now we stand at the edge. People know about Planadium and its abilities. We cannot let it be buried or controlled by a few. It is now time that people demand transparency and action. We should use it for the common benefit of humanity as a whole. We call upon scientists, engineers, and leaders worldwide to come together, to cooperate openly and develop the infrastructure in place in order to make use of this extraordinary resource. Let us struggle for a new age in which energy is not a weapon or a privilege, but a right. Hawk and his team have risked everything just to give us this discovery. Now it's our turn to make sure that their sacrifices were not in vain. Spread this word, raise your voices, and join this movement for a sustainable and just future. To Dr. Hawk and his team, listening right now, thanks. Your courage and dedication have given us hope. We will not let your efforts be in vain. For everyone else, spread this message, share it with your friends, your family, your communities. Let the world know that a better future is in our reach, and we have to fight for it. This is Jonathan, signing off with a message of hope and a call to action. We can light up the world together, but the fight has just begun. We can ensure that a new era of energy, with its promise, has just begun. The room was quiet as the realization of what they had just done set in. Hawk and his team, all on the same frequency, shared a moment of silent triumph. They knew their fight wasn't close to being over, but they also knew they weren't alone. The world had heard their story, and the first sparks of a revolution had been fanned to life. Hawk let out a deep breath. Now we wait. Emily looked around at her colleagues, her eyes ablaze with determination. We have done our part. Now it is up to the people to rise up and demand the change that we all need. Jonathan switched off the equipment and leaned back into his chair, exhaustion washing over him like relief. Hope the world's ready to listen. Over the next few weeks, the movement continued to grow. Jonathan's broadcast seemed to have lit the fire that turned into a public demand, blazing inferno for change. Around the globe, people took to the streets, their voices unified in a single call for advancement and equality. The air was charged with hope and defiance as people from every walk of life rallied together to take back their future. The world government's clashes with the public grew increasingly heated. Protesters had taken to the streets of major cities across the world, demanding openness and direct implementation of energy solutions using Planadium. The streets of New York, London, Tokyo, and many other cities were filled with determined faces, each carrying signs that read "Energy for All" and "Progress over Power." Meanwhile, huge companies, the longtime beneficiaries of the current energy monopoly, brought immense pressure to bear on the world governments. Fearing the shift represented by Planadium, these powerful entities that had controlled the energy markets for so long were desperate to hold on to their influence. Lobbyists and executives en masse invaded the halls of power. Despite this, public opinion became unstoppable. Officials of world governments who had initially pushed back felt the squeeze from their constituents. Town halls and parliamentary sessions echoed with the voice of the people, whom no one could ignore. Slowly, officials began to break ranks and join the public in calling for change. They came to the realization that clinging to outdated power structures was no longer tenable, and they had to give in to the mass of public will. Hawk and his team were no longer hunted by the world government. The tides of public support had turned things around, ensuring their safety and giving them a newfound freedom to continue their work. The Core M ship, the technological marvel and key to their breakthroughs, was discreetly hidden in the periphery of the Greenland lab. What was once a desolate and secret facility now became a buzzing hub with new scientists and researchers joining the team. These fresh minds were eager to contribute to the revolutionary energy source that promised to change the world. However, Hawk remained vigilant with the secrets they guarded. The cosmic particles, the mysterious catalyst behind the planetium energy transformation, were heavily guarded and hidden from everyone, including the new scientists. The focus shifted to commercial production of planetium cells in the lab. Hawk and his team toiled, working to see to it that the 3.2 kilograms of planetium fragments were utilized to their full potential. The cells were crafted carefully, with every precaution taken in maintaining safety and efficiency. Hawk and his team released the blueprints of using planetium cells to the existing energy production plants and power grid systems worldwide. The presence of mind ensured a smoother transition, making it possible for the integration of planetium cells into the global infrastructure without needing a complete overhaul. Power plants and grids adapted to harness the new energy source, and efficiency and sustainability rose unprecedentedly. The lab in Greenland was all set abuzz. Scientists collaborated on making the planetium cells last longer and work better. One morning, at the heart of the lab, stood Emily and Chad in front of a newly assembled planetium cell, marveling at its power. "It's amazing to think that this small cell is capable of powering a city," Emily said, her eyes reflective of the glowing light of the cell. Chad just smiled and nodded. "And to think, it all started with a fragment. Imagine what could be done once we fully tap into the moon's resources." Not far from the duo stood Edward, in a huddle with a bunch of new scientists, discussing the latest refinements to the efficiency of the planetium cell. "We've been able to increase the output of the cell by 5%, he announced. "This means more lasting power with even less planetium." Hawk, as he watched his team, felt pride surge within his chest. They had come a long way, and it was finally paying off. The world was slowly changing, and it was all because of their work that it had begun. Later that day, as the team gathered in the large conference room, Hawk addressed them. "We've made incredible progress, but we have to be vigilant. The planetium cells are our gift to the world, but the cosmic particles and their potential must remain our secret. We can't risk the power they hold falling into the wrong hands." The team agreed, knowing the gravity of the mission. They had a responsibility to make sure their discoveries were used for the greater good, and they were committed to maintaining the balance they had fought so hard to achieve. As the planetium cells began to be distributed across the globe, the Greenland lab continued to innovate, ushering humanity into a new era of sustainable energy. The future was bright, and it was only the beginning of the changes that Hawk and his team would bring upon the world. The shift of power was palpable. The discourse was no longer about money and profit margins, but about ideals of progress and equality. The gap between rich and poor, fostered by the energy crisis, was being addressed head-on. People would no longer accept a future where only the privileged few could afford reliable energy and advancements in technology. Technological progress, which had been brought to a screeching halt by the energy crisis, now stirred once more. The ideas had been shelved, now dusted off, and re-looked at. Researchers and engineers, inspired by the promise of planetium, worked unrelentingly to develop new technologies that could harness the power of this powerful mineral. The promise of a world where energy was in plenty, available at one's fingertips, began to come true. Even with resistance from corporations and inertia from governments, the movement continued to grow. The energy crisis had been a turning point, and now humanity was grasping the chance to build a better future. It was a time of great change, not driven by individuals, but by the collective will of the people and the revolutionary potential of planetium. Hawk and his team, watching all this from their secret location, felt a renewed sense of purpose. The world was waking up to the possibility of a new era, one where energy was a right and not a privilege, and progress was defined by the health of all and not the profits of a few. 2 years had passed since the world adopted planetium cells, and Earth started to heal. The transformation was huge. cities that once suffered from chronic power outages now thrived with abundant, clean energy. Smog-filled skies cleared, and nature started gaining its due place in urban environments. The positive effects were felt the world over as energy costs came crashing down and accessibility increased, helping to bridge the divide between the developed and developing world. During this period, other companies took over the task of mining planadium from the moon on behalf of Hawke's team. The rigorous protocols set up by Hawke ensured that the extraction processes remained ethical and sustainable. As the resources of the moon were tapped, Earth went into an unprecedented era of prosperity. Technological advancements didn't stop there. Space shuttles, which earlier had to consume enormous fuel, were now redesigned to consume planadium cells. These shuttles used much less energy and could fly longer distances without any harm to the environment. New routes to space travel had opened up. 10 years had passed since the time Hawke and his team took the energy crisis head-on. The whole world had changed. The success of the planadium cells had triggered an evolution of industries and economies. The Greenland Lab, previously an anonymous research facility, had now become a vanguard of innovation and research, with some of the most brilliant minds visiting from different parts of the world. On the 10th anniversary of their breakthrough, Hawke stood in front of a gathering of his team and newly joined scientists at the Greenland Lab. The air was that of celebration and reflection. "It's hard to believe it's been 10 years, Hawke began, his voice filled with emotion. "When we started this journey, we faced countless challenges. We were hunted, doubted, and tested beyond our limits. But look at what we've achieved. The energy crisis is no longer a looming threat. We have given the world a sustainable future." Emily, standing beside him, added, "We've seen incredible advancements, not just in energy, but in the overall well-being of our planet. Pollution levels have dropped, economies have stabilized, and we've made significant strides in closing the gap between the rich and the poor. Our work has brought about a new era of equality and progress." Chad nodded, looking around at the assembled team. "It has been a team effort. Every single person present here has contributed to this success. And while we have achieved so much, there is still a lot that is needed to be done. We have to keep innovating, keep exploring, and ensure that the benefits of planadium touch every corner of the globe." Edward, the perennial dreamer, picked up on that. "We have changed space travel and begun to realize the true potential of planadium. The mining operations on the moon are just the beginning. The future could take us to even greater discoveries both on Earth and in the heavens." The party continued, with the team reminiscing about the journey taken thus far and looking toward the future. The Greenland Lab remained a shining beacon of hope and progress, a testament to what could be achieved through dedication, innovation, and a shared vision. "Edward," Hawke said, walking to his old friend, "it has been 2 years since we last used the Corem ship. How about we all get together for old time's sake and take a ride around the Earth?" The surprise and excitement sparkling in Edward's eyes were great. "You know, that sounds like a great idea. It has been too long." Hawke wasted little time in rounding up Emily and Chad, and the team set off with a familiar enthusiasm. They headed toward the Corem ship, stealthily stashed near the Greenland Lab, a very familiar sight to bring a flood of memories, right from that spunky adventure to the center of the Earth to the colossal moon mission. As the team settled inside the ship, Edward moved to the control panel and initiated the startup sequence. The hum of the ship's systems coming alive filled the cabin. However, as Edward ran his eyes through the readouts, his expression changed from excitement to confusion and then to shock. "Hawke, something's wrong," Edward said, his voice tight. Hawke turned forward, concern marked all over his face. "What is it, Edward?" Edward pointed to the screen. "The ship's systems have changed. It no longer can fly. It just can hover. Brumium's capabilities seem to have been altered or suppressed." Emily and Chad exchanged worried glances. "How is that possible?" Emily asked. "We haven't touched the ship in 2 years. What could have caused this?" Edward shook his head, still staring at the readouts. "I don't know. It's like the ship's power source has been tampered with or has naturally degraded with time. Brumium, which powers our extraordinary capability, seems inactive." Chad, always the problem solver, suggested. Maybe it's something environmental? The Brumium might be reacting to the location or some external factors we haven't considered. Hawk took a deep breath, trying to process the situation. Whatever it is, we need to figure it out. If the Brumium's abilities are truly gone, we need to understand why. This ship has been crucial to our breakthroughs, and we can't afford to lose it. The team gathered around the control panel, their minds racing with questions and theories. A new set of mysteries was unfolding before them, ones that would have deep implications for their work and the future. We'll begin with the diagnostics of the Brumium core, Edward ordered. Taking matters into his own hands, we'll verify its structure for any kind of anomaly, damage, or change. Emily nodded. We should also go over the ship's logs for any kind of clue. Maybe something happened during our last mission that we missed. Chad added, we should also consider the environmental factors here in Greenland. If the Brumium is reacting to something in this location, we need to know what it is. Hawk looked at his team, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Let's get to work. We've solved bigger mysteries before, and we'll solve this one too. The team dispersed to their tasks, each member driven by curiosity and determination. As they dug deep into the diagnostics and the logs, they couldn't help but feel like this was just the beginning of a new chapter. The Coram ship, their trusted vessel of discovery, was once again right at the center of an enigma that would change everything. Hours turned into days as the team worked tirelessly, unraveling the complex layers of the ship's systems and the Brumium. They were driven by the very same spirit that had brought them together in the first place, knowing that every answer uncovered would lead to new possibilities and adventures. The team was getting nowhere with their diagnostics and theories. Frustration was beginning to set in with each test that brought no answers. Emily was hunched over a console, reviewing the ship's logs for the 10th time, while Edward pored over the Brumium schematics. Suddenly, Chad, who had been staring at the control panel with a furrowed brow, spoke up. "Wait a minute," he said, breaking the tense silence. "Didn't we have the cosmic particles on board before?" The ship transformed only when both Brumium and cosmic particles were in the same area, while we were escaping from the secret island from the world government. Once we removed the cosmic particles from the ship, it seems like we removed its ability to fly as well. Everybody looked at him as realization dawned on their faces. "Chad's right," Emily said, sitting up straight. "The ship's incredible speed and capabilities only manifested after we brought the cosmic particles on board." Hawk nodded thoughtfully. "If we check the controls, the ship no longer shows a speed of 10,000 kilometers per second. It's back to its old speed." Edward quickly browsed through to the ship's speed settings and confirmed their suspicions. "It's true. The maximum speed is significantly reduced. Without the cosmic particles, it's as if the Brumium's unique properties are dormant." Chad continued, "So if we bring the cosmic particles back on board, we might be able to restore the ship's full capabilities." The team was quick to devise a plan. They would create a controlled environment within the ship to reintroduce the cosmic particles, ensuring that any interactions could be monitored and managed. "Let's set up the containment chamber again," Edward said. "This time, though, we'll have sensors in place to track the energy flow and any changes in the Brumium." As the cosmic particles were fed back into the ship, the atmosphere inside the Coram ship appeared to shift. The hum of the system sounded louder than usual, and control panel lights flickered for a moment. "Check the speed settings," Hawk instructed Edward. Edward tapped a few keys and then beamed. "It's back. The ship's max speed is back. We're sitting at 10,000 kilometers per second." Chad exhaled a relieved breath. "Looks like we were right. The Brumium and cosmic particles have got to be together to unlock the ship's full potential." Hawk nodded. "Agreed. However, for now, it seems we have got our ship back." The team shared smiles, as though a new excitement had begun to cascade over them. They had figured out the mystery and regained the Coram ship's incredible ability. "How about that ride around the Earth?" Hawk said with a grin. The team laughed, the tension of the last few days dissolving away from them. They readied the ship to once again take flight, flying to view the wonders of their world from the unique vantage point of the Coram ship. As they took off, they shared the same sense of unity and purpose that they needed to deal with whatever new challenges and discoveries the universe held in store for them. As the Quorum ship lifted off from the hidden Greenland lab, the team looked out the windows in wonder at the beautiful view. Earth stretched out below them in an awesome display of blue oceans, green forests, and sprawling cities. Even the curvature of the planet was visible, a beautiful reminder of the world they worked so hard to protect and improve. The ship soared higher, and soon the familiar landscapes gave way to the expanse of space. The stars glittered like diamonds against black velvet, and Earth, bathed in sunlight, was fragile and magnificent all at once. For a moment, the team was silent, daunted by the view and the enormity of their journey. Hawk broke the spell, his voice filled with wonder. "Look at that. Never gets old, does it? Seeing our planet from up here, it really puts everything into perspective." Emily nodded, her eyes fastened on the distant horizon. "It's incredible. All our struggles, all our efforts, they seem so minute against this vastness." At one of the control panels, Chad turned to look around. "And yet, it's those struggles that have brought us this far. We've achieved so much, but there's still so much more to do." Edward leaned back in his seat, thoughtful. "Speaking of more to do, have you guys thought about what's next? I mean, beyond just mining planadium and solving the energy crisis. We've got this ship. We could push the boundaries of space exploration." Hawk's eyes lit up. "Space exploration. That's always been the dream, hasn't it? To go beyond our planet, to see what's out there, to learn and discover." As the team continued to brainstorm about their future plans, an unsettling realization began to creep in. It was Emily who voiced it first. "Wait a minute. If the ship is up here, powered by the cosmic particles, what happens to the lab back in Greenland? Can we run both operations simultaneously?" The room was silent and heavy as the implications soaked in. Edward was the first to break the silence. "Its ship's capabilities are dependent upon cosmic particles. If we're using them here, then they are not here to power the lab's production processes. It's one or the other." Chad exhaled heavily, frustration evident in his tone. "So we have a choice. We use the ship for exploration and chance-stopping production, or we put it to the side and focus on energy production." Hawk's shoulders slumped slightly. "This ship, it's more than just a tool. It's a symbol of our progress, our potential. But if using it means we can't produce planadium, then we're limiting ourselves." Emily's voice was soft but firm. "We have to think about what's best for humanity. Right now, that means focusing on the energy crisis. People need planadium to survive, to rebuild. Space exploration can wait." Edward nodded in agreement. "It's a tough decision, but Emily's right. We have to prioritize. Maybe in the future, we can find a way to do both. But for now, our mission is clear." The team sat in silence, the weight of their responsibilities pressing down on them. The view outside the window was still as beautiful as ever, but now it seemed tinged with a bittersweet realization of the limits they faced. Hawk finally spoke, his voice filled with determination. "We'll keep pushing forward. We'll find a way to balance our goals. But for now, let's make the most of this moment. Let's enjoy the view, appreciate how far we've come, and renew our commitment to making a difference." The team regained new spirits as the Quorum ship kept orbiting above the Earth. They were aware of the hard path to proceed further and the choices to make, which were not going to be easy, but also at the same time filled with thickets of unforeseen obstacles. They also knew that together they can overcome any hurdle, and their sojourn is yet not over, and their dream to explore and discover someday will be a reality. Now, they will concentrate upon the assigned task, and their unity will prevail by virtue of the common dream of a better future for all of humanity. This has been Lunar Legacy, Book 5 from the Core series, narrated by N. Kennard, copyright 2024 N. Kennard, production copyright 2024 by N. Kennard. Audiobook partner Story Depths available only on YouTube.